Hey, what's going on, everyone? Check out what's coming up this week on Legacies.
Look for a lab that is doing proficiency testing for
So they don't all
whatever
have
tests.
that? They don't all have to have that?
No, but Health Canada does not require that.
You go ahead and do your low T test, but when it comes time for you to take testosterone injections, I am not doing your ass jabs for you. No chance.
And he's laughing. He's like, dude, what do you want? He's like, we've been watching you in this boardroom.
I was going to say, he's probably
since
been watching
Monday.
you for 5 fucking days.
He's like, this guy's back. This guy's, is he selling Bibles? What does he want?
Hey, welcome to Legacies, everyone. I'm your host, Tom Ritchie, joined by Wesley the Wizard Bowles, co-host, executive producer. Good morning, Wes.
Good morning. Glad to be back.
Glad to be back from Virginia. You escaped unscathed.
Yeah, that's not too bad of a drive actually. That 8-hour drive. It's not very boring. A lot of the drives you do around here, they're fairly long, straight highways.
Long straight.
Not a ton going on.
Especially if you have to go up north. It's
yeah, that was
crazy.
fairly nice. It was a pretty nice.
Well, you
drive.
got the zigzag through the state, so that's not so bad then.
Yeah, I did.
I feel so fucking hazy today. Just tired. Well, I mean, I didn't get any sleep. Had 2 fucking sick dogs.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be us without mentioning the weather, so it might be because it's
sunny here.
A reasonable temperature outside with
I'll take
minimal
it.
humidity.
You know what? It was cold last night. I'm like, what the fuck? Is it fall now? Like, where did summer go? Is it fall? It certainly has been raining a lot, though. But no, I think I might have only gotten like 3-4 hours. You'll remember yesterday we were on a meeting, and I'm like, I had to keep checking back. The dogs, I don't know what the fuck they got into. They got into something, but they were vomiting. And then last night, Gordy ends up, he's itching constantly, and he ends up with these welts. So we get him some Benadryl, but he was up. Fuck. Like, it's like he's having kids, man. It's like, they are kids. So very little sleep. And you know what's funny? I call the vet, and the vet asks more questions and is more concerned about your pet's health than your own fucking family doctors. They really are. I don't know if you've had to be to a family doctor lately. They're brutal, man. They are brutal. I very much stand behind what many are now saying, like Dana White. I think Dana's like, I don't go to the doctor for any nutritional advice or anything. If you recall, Dana White was like on deathbed. Like he just was not taking care of himself. He ended up with Gary Brecka. And he's like, I need surgery. I got a broken bone, something like that. I need diagnostics. I'll go to a doctor. But otherwise, no fucking way. And it's the same thing. I mean, God, I'm getting up in age, right? I'm trying to figure out what's going on with fucking joint pain. And, I exercise as much as I can. I eat as healthy as I can. I take fucking boatloads of supplements. Don't take any opioids, none of that stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck? I still have joint pain, still have things going on. Getting older, and I'm thinking, is it testosterone? Maybe it's testosterone. Yeah. I don't know.
Looking at things from a family doctor's perspective, I can imagine, again, even though it is their job, that's what they've trained their life to do, I can imagine it getting fairly frustrating for them coming in every day and seeing those people come in for the most minor of things.
Oh, sure.
And, that's why they're in the habit of this done. Like,
yeah,
I know
I
what
can,
this is,
I can get
thing,
that.
Right?
I can totally get that. But and I understand their tools are medications. That's what they work with. They can send you for an X-ray, that sort of stuff. But God forbid. I mean, I asked my doctor, a month ago or something like that. I'm like, okay, we've been through this. I'm not taking any of these, pills that you want to push on me. Could it be testosterone? Like, I've read cannabis use can lower it, chronic pain can lower it, this can lower it, blah, blah, blah. He looks at me, goes, nope, we don't need to consider that for you. And I'm thinking, just fucking get me some blood work, dude. Like, just order blood work. It's almost like it's coming out of their pocket. And I get if they're sending you for too much diagnostic testing, yeah, maybe. I haven't been to the doctor in 8 fucking years. It's not like I'm overloading the labs and, I'm a burden on Ontario's healthcare. So anyways, I searched it out. There are a ton of clinics online, and I'm sure there's reputable and non-reputable ones, where, they'll help you. Like they, start with diagnostic testing. You go through a questionnaire. And then one of their physicians, nurse practitioner or physician will order blood work, and you go and get it's not just like they're testing testosterone either. They're testing fucking everything, like B12, you name it. So I'm going to do it. I mean, $50. I don't give a fuck. If my family doctor was like, yeah, I'm going to send you, but you have to pay. I'd be like, I'll pay. I don't care. Let's rule everything out. Right. I don't know. Maybe it is. Come in like,
I know there's a ton of clinics online specifically for low T. If you're checking for that stuff.
There is. And I mean, the thing is that, and the reason I'm paying more attention to it is, you know, my wife has developed and designed programs to help women suffering with menopause. And hormone replacement therapy is a lifesaver to the vast majority of women, and so few know about it. And I'm like, well, if hormone replacement therapy is helping women, why wouldn't guys have to go through the same thing? So I'll keep everyone updated. We'll see. Does Tom have low T? I don't know, but we're going to find out once and for all with no help from my family doctor. Fuck. It irritates me. It just irritates me. So I found one. It was called Science and Humans. They don't have any socials, I think. I mean, they might have like X or something like that, but I'm trying to do them. The website looked good. I don't know. Tanya's like, you sure they're not a scam? I'm like, I don't fucking know. It's $50. Like, what's the worst that could go wrong? I have no idea. I mean, it looked legit. They're in Mississauga, apparently. I can go to their physical address. Maybe I'll send you to check them out.
I'm sure they'd also have to be listed in some form or fashion with Health Canada.
Everything is
some
through,
form of, and you can,
they can't
there's probably a
administer,
list you can cross-reference.
They can't administer any of those like human growth hormones and testosterones and all. And they do women's hormone replacement therapy as well. But you can't do this unless you have something to do with Health Canada.
All I'll say though is go ahead and do your low T test, but when it comes time for you to take testosterone injections, I am not doing your ass jabs for you. No chance.
Oh, Wes, I forgot today. Can you handle this for me? Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, no ass jabs for me.
No ass jabs. Yikes! I think they have a bunch of different. There's pills and transdermal creams and all these sorts of things. I just need to rule everything out. I'm doing, from what I can tell. Like Joe Rogan and Gary Brecka have me down this fucking path of just check everything, right? So avoid folic acids, you know, red light therapies, hydrogen waters. Like I don't care, man. I've dealt with it long enough. I've got to rule it out. There's got to be something going on. I don't know. It could be just arthritis too, for all I know. Who knows?
I'm on a similar kick to you. Like 2 days ago, because I did it about 7 or 8 months ago, and I felt phenomenal. I mean, other than my morning iced coffee, I've switched over to...
We have some vices. It's okay.
The last 2 or 3 days, I've switched over back to carnivore, just the meats.
Oh, I did keto diet or carnivore, like Jordan Peterson carnivore diet?
Jordan Peterson carnivore, which is you know, just the meats and proteins and stuff.
Yeah.
And I did it. I remember doing it about 8 months ago, and I was on it for a solid month. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the first 2 weeks are incredibly difficult because you're trying to kick that sugar craving.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember after that first 2 weeks, it was like simple. It was like I could be in front of sugar and not even slightly care about it.
I'm trying to keep my eye on sugar, but
obviously having a morning
that's a big one for that diet,
help,
right? You want to avoid the sugars as well, right?
The sugar and the carbohydrates really is what you want to avoid on those. But I remember feeling amazing after that. Yeah. I was on it for about a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah.
I felt incredible. And, you know, all it takes is, I think there was an event I had or something like that where kind of, you know, there's food at the event and stuff like that. And you just kind of, it's really easy to fall back off the wagon.
A cheat day can lead, I remember from my days working out hard, a cheat day can lead to a week cheat, to a month cheat, to a quarter cheat, to a year cheat. And then all of a sudden you're backslid into, fuck, why do I feel like this? I do try to, I mean, basically, so on the carnivore diet, you're going into ketosis, right? And I don't know enough about them. Tanya does, obviously, but I don't know the length of how long you should be. I think there's different varying evidence to say long-term, short-term. For me, I look at, and honestly, you know, I was on a vegan diet for 7 years, vegetarian before that. And Tanya, she was vegetarian, I mean, like forever before switching to a vegan diet. And, you know, you're trying to get all those nutrients. And some of the things that I'm discovering is, you know, like, for instance, spinach. Spinach, you cut it, it's immediately, well, everything is decaying from the moment even cannabis is decaying from the moment you chop it down. But if you wait 6 days from the harvest of spinach, there is no nutritional value left in it. So think winters up here in Canada. The vast majority of what we're getting, there just can't be that much nutrient, which is why we're so deficient, right? So even in a vegan diet, tons and tons of leafy greens, you name it. I mean, you've seen the way I used to eat. And, you know, sometimes I was low energy. I'm like, what the fuck? And you're supplementing and you're taking all these different things. And I don't know. So, yeah, I eat the meat. I'm back. Not a carnivore diet, but I'm willing to try it. Like I said, I'll try everything. A new pain pops up every fucking day, man. Like every day.
I'll tell you this, doing carnivore and shit like that and keto, it's not fucking cheap. Okay?
I bet.
It's not cheap.
Yeah.
Like to get raw meats and just raw meats.
Well, dude,
and
when I was on a
eggs and
vegan
stuff are
diet,
cheap, but
people used to say, how do you afford that? And I'm like, I peek at the price of meat once in a while. Like, I'll tell you, tofu is a lot cheaper by pound than prime rib. Like
this would be a super easy diet to go on if you really just wanted to eat steak all day every day. It's great. I love steak, but I don't love paying $42 for a tray of two and a half, 3 steaks.
Well, I don't understand
it's
where
crazy.
and I guess carnivore diet would be meat, just meat. But red meats, I mean, have been proven to increase gout. Like, I don't know. Beef farmers have a lot of gout, from what I understand. Beef farmer out there, let us know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've seen conflicting information. Stuff that
we know
studies were done on groups that weren't controlled, and I don't know. There's a lot of misleading information on there, but all I know is I felt great the last time I did it. Yeah. I'm going to try it again. By no means am I saying
do it. And how are the walks
do this
going
for the next 16 years?
I've always been bugging you about your walks, right? Because you're there on the boardwalk.
It's beautiful area to do the walking. I've got to get back to it this week because I butched it when I went to Virginia.
Yeah, but you were working. You're chasing cows, baby.
Completely. Yeah, that's true.
It's not like you weren't doing
I do got to
anything.
get back to it. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not as disgusting outside, so it's a little easier to do.
Yeah. I keep popping popcorn with all the crazy shit going on in the world. And I think the most closest to home, although we're going to start paying a lot more attention to what's going on with the Poilievre and Trudeau shit that's going on here in Canada. But U.S. politics are just continuously blowing my mind. I sent you a link to I think it was an X post. Forget who it was that had posted it, but it was Biden's chief economic advisor. What was his name? Jared Bernstein, trying to explain. He was asked a very simple question of, if the U.S. prints money, why do we borrow it? And this bumbling fool could not answer the question. You've seen it. You saw that, right? And he's like, well, yeah, that's true. We do print money, and we borrow and we lend money. And I think we sell bonds. I think we sell bonds. Wait, is that how it works? Yeah, we sell bonds. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, the fact that the first thing that came to his mind wasn't, oh, well, we don't want to devalue our currency by making it worthless.
What the fuck? But this is Biden's economic advisor.
There's no one higher about the economy than him. Like when he's talking about president.
I mean, it shouldn't surprise us this day and age, but that is one of the most basic forms of economic understanding, is printing, borrowing, and lending, especially at the federal level. I wouldn't expect a 12-year-old to explain it, but I would think that, I don't know about this generation anymore. My generation, maybe. Your generation, probably. But today's generation, yeah, I don't know. They're too busy making fucking TikTok videos, which is funny because we're all over TikTok too. But
none of these younger generations were around when we were on the gold standard, so it's not. It's very, very different. Oh my God. Right?
I watched a documentary called Gold. It was Idris. I forget his name. I don't want to butcher it, but it's a documentary on gold and just the allure of it and different areas it's mined. It starts in Canada. He goes down to this like 3 kilometer deep mine shaft, and they're mining gold. I was like, holy fuck! Like, you don't realize how much gold mining is still going on. Like, it is crazy. And apparently Canada has one of the biggest reserves. So whatever, could be in Canada sometimes.
Yeah,
when you need the gold, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, you mentioned the Canadian stuff at the beginning before we got into U.S. stuff, but the one thing I am seeing, which is a little bit positive, is it seems like a lot more people are rallying around. Okay, it's time for Trudeau to go.
Trudeau's
I'm hearing
go.
it. Yeah. I'm hearing it on mainstream media now. Like, where even the sides that usually
I don't think the Liberal Party has any confidence in him.
No, the Liberal Party sent I can't remember who it was in the Liberal Party, but sent an email to the entire caucus and said, look, for the benefit of the party and the country, it's time. Like, we need to swap this guy out.
It's we'll come back to this because I'm going to dig in a lot more. But I think it's because it's so close to home. I just get infuriated and I leave it. Right. Because there's a lot of pros and cons on both sides. I don't see very many pros on the liberal side. That's just me. It's my personal opinion. But there's always pros and cons, right? If you could take all the best from each party, US included, UK included, it doesn't matter where, you'd have a perfect political party, but unfortunately that's not the way it works. And speaking of that, I mean, StratCan News, right? Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club, fine, $3.2 million.
That's a hefty fine. It looks like that's double the amount that was in inventory for them. I think the amount of what they had in inventory was
they
like
put
1.6.
an assumed value on it. Like they come up with their own, formulations of this is how much you're sitting on. This is how much we think you do in revenue in a year or whatever. It's not a dispensary. So let's be clear. When it comes to the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club, it's a compassion club. It's not a dispensary.
Let me ask you this versus someone who's ignorant to the Dallas. Sorry, I almost said
Dallas Buyers Club.
the Cannabis Buyers Club, because I really unfortunately don't know much about them.
Yeah.
And we have talked before about, you've had the opportunity to transition to legal. We've talked about other. And I don't shoot me for asking this question to anyone, but because I generally don't know. But what is the difference here about someone who's an organization or a group who's had the opportunity to transition to legal? Why are they different?
Yeah. So I'll speak to what I know because I'm not an expert in this field. And actually, we have not funny enough, Kirk Tousaw is on the case. So and I don't remember when we've got him lined up, but he's coming on. So what I understand is this. So the VCBC has existed since 1996. And it's a compassion club. So in the form of a compassion club, they are working with medical patients that one cannot afford. They don't have benefits, right? And if we think back to 96, there is no benefits. You're not getting any cannabis covered by insurance. Fast forward 2017, 18, legal framework is set up. And then, that's medicinally, but still anyone under the medical regime of cannabis, they may not have coverage or benefits to be able to cover it. And it's still, we saw the pricing. We were very close to this. It wasn't cheap. So the compassion clubs are set up in such a way that it provides affordable or free of charge cannabis to those patients that need it, right? They're not necessarily taking opioids. They're dealing and treating their conditions, using cannabis as a form of treatment. There is, from my understanding anyways, we'll ask Kirk this, there is no legal framework to allow this model of operation. So let's say they wanted to become a dispensary, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to say you're a dispensary. They're not a dispensary, they're a compassion club. And in this case, buyers club. So I think there would be some form of membership. And I haven't gone into it deep enough to understand it, but this is just in general. So if I can register with the Buyers Club, or in this case, the Compassion Club, and maybe there's a membership fee. I'm not sure, probably is, but they will either comp you your medicine or provide it at a very low price point. Let's look at that in, the regulated side of things where dispensaries exist. They would spend millions of dollars, right, potentially to become regulated. But then because of that, like, look at the wholesale pricing, right? The wholesale pricing from the vast majority of the market or the LPs, they're still not going to be able to afford it. These patients will not be able to afford that cannabis. So in this scenario, it's really just providing affordable medicine and sometimes free of charge medicine to these patients. I don't even know if we can call them patients. I'm just going to call them patients because really, they're patients somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. But they've had a number of raids over the years. They've tried shutting them down. They still exist. And what's fucked is I saw this on the VCBC's Instagram. Is you go back to, I think it was a June 4th post, and there was a proclamation for Medical Marijuana Day or something like that, or Marijuana Day.
Yeah, I'll pop that up on
yeah,
screen
and so signed by the mayor of Victoria. And then it's one thing to be even coming after them. It's another to put that kind of a penalty on such a caring organization. Like we've seen what's going on across Canada. Illegal dispensaries are fucking rampant, right? And the ones that they do, air quote, shut down, they're not fined anywhere near. I mean, there was one that was what, $30,000 fine, and they've been operating for, like, not even. I don't even want to compare the two because they are drastically different, right? One is a compassion club providing medicine at a low cost or no cost. The other is a dispensary for profit, because let's not forget, VCBC is a not-for-profit. So on the flip side of that, you have an illegal dispensary charging less than what you may find for at retail prices in a regulated dispensary, but they're still
has
operating
a framework.
for
That has
profit.
a framework to go into. Yeah.
Yeah, and has the full ability, as you say, to be able to transition into a regulated industry. I get it. There's a lot of fees, there's a lot of taxation. I get it. But one of the comments that I saw on the Instagram feed with this was, Nicholas Wong, Mr. Nicholas Wong from Certicraft. He said, this is an emotional hand grenade. And it is. Like, think about that for a second. The vast majority of these individuals, cannabis does not eliminate your pains. I mean, yeah, it will help you cope. That's the biggest thing. And you struggle. You get up in pain. I've been here, right? You get up in pain. You're in pain throughout the day. You have different, ailments that are affecting your daily quality of life. And now they come in and do this. And all those patients, all those individuals that are part of this club, they're basically saying, fuck you, we don't care, right? So rather than go, we need to figure this out, we need to figure out a legitimate way to have these compassion clubs operate, they just come in, they try to shut them down and slap a great big fucking fine on them. Ted Smith, kudos to this guy. He's been doing this for a long time. He's a very caring and giving individual. But, back to Nick's comment, this is an emotional hand grenade. I couldn't imagine all that hard work, efforts. Like, they're not for profit. These dudes aren't driving around in Lamborghinis. I've seen the illegal dispensaries. I've seen the Ferraris and Lamborghinis parked at these places, right? This is not Ted Smith. It's not. Do better, Victoria. Come on, man. Like, what the fuck? This just pisses me off. And mostly I'm so close to it because, I started an MMAR, right? I was a designated grower. I was supplying cannabis to those that were in need. We fucked around with numbers and we did that. But at the same time, it was for medical purposes. I just fucking bugged. Anyways,
we'll keep an eye on
it. Kirk Tousaw, he's on the case. There's another lawyer involved. I do apologize. I'd have to go back to the article and check it. But Godspeed.
I think I've got it
Figure
here.
it out.
I've got it here. Where is that? Oh my God, I just had it. Jack Lloyd, right. Two fairly infamous lawyers in the cannabis side of things here in Canada. So yeah, I imagine with everything Kirk's been on, as soon
they
as
don't
you
stand
see
a fucking chance.
as soon as you see that name come in on the subpoena, not the subpoena, but the indictment or whatever it is, I don't know law terms, but as soon as you see that name, you're probably like, oh fuck, here we go. Same as
they'd
Health
have
Canada,
to know, right? Like, you'd
same
think
as
they'd
Health
have to
Canada
know.
getting that letter from Mr. Harrison.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like I say, Godspeed. I know that they'll figure it out, but just figure it out. That's the thing. Like, and fuck the fines, get that to a side, but figure out some framework to allow these compassion clubs to operate. It'd be different if they're for profit and they're driving around and fucking living in mansions and driving around in Lamborghinis. Like, and I've seen that. I've seen it. But that's not Ted Smith and his crew. It's not. Anyways, one of the things, so you remember when we were at Jazz's event, 420 Affair, sorry. See, this is where the sleepiness and haziness is coming in. So Nate from Retro Haze approached us, super nice guy. He had put out a call, I don't know how many episodes ago, 5-6 episodes ago, looking for legacy OG type strains to try, Northern Lights, White Widows, et cetera, and someone had tagged and commented, Retro Haze has what you're looking for in their Jack Herer. So I don't know if you know much about Jack Herer. It's an OG type strain. It's a haze combined with a Northern Lights and a skunk, if I believe. And if Ryan from Chimera is watching and knows, he can probably correct me because we were talking about some OG skunk plants. Anyways, finally got around to trying. I'm like, he gave me a pre-roll and a container. I've got it here. I'll block the THC symbol. We can do this like this, maybe. I don't know if you can see that. Yep. But anyways, so I'm like, oh yeah, I got to try that. So I popped it open last night. Nate being there, I think he's the Ontario territory manager. So super, super nice guy. Like, just so good. He's like, hey, I heard you were looking for some OG Legacy strains. Got something for you. And I'm like, cool, man. Awesome. So we chatted with him a little bit, told us what, kind of what they were doing. And I won't pull this out, but I tried it last night. Man, it was everything that I would expect of an OG Legacy type strain. The smell, the flavor, the density. But what I will say is, this is a 3.5 gram container. It was one fucking nug. Yep, nice. One nug. Well done, Retro Haze. It was absolutely everything I expected. So they have a beautiful website too, because shortly after I'm like, let me check their website. Very retro. It's very in line with what we do over at the High Flyer. So I was like, yes. But anyways, check them out. The site's awesome. It looks like they have some other retro Legacy type strains. So now I want to try them all. And the hard part is trying it all. I'm like a kid in the candy store in this fucking industry.
Well, they were pretty cool too, because they had another product in that dope box from Jazz that evening that they've got a little plastic grinder built into the top of the bottle, right?
Oh, that was one that Nate gave you. That wasn't in the dope box.
Oh,
that
wasn't in the dope box.
That was
Sorry.
a separate one. Yeah. So
Got
I don't know if that was Jack Hare that he had given you. So definitely try that out. But I remember giving it to you, going, you don't have a grinder here. Take this.
Yeah, I think that this one was just lemon haze.
Could be a lemon haze or a super lemon haze.
Check the packaging.
Yeah,
but,
and hazes.
I haven't tried it yet. Yeah,
hazes are not easy to grow. I think I tried silver haze once. And I'd ask my buddies, like, why the fuck did you get a haze? Like, you are not experienced enough. And lesson learned, it was one of my worst fucking crops. I could be mistaken. Things have changed, over the last 10 years since I tried growing it, but I did not have any luck with it. But there was one that you were mentioning. We've all tried it from the High Flyer team now.
So this one was in the dope box. That was at the 420 Fair event. And I think I mentioned it 3 or 4 episodes ago, and all I said was it was in the box. It smelled great, and I have not tried it. That's why I didn't comment on it.
Right.
But I have, and because there's 5 in here, and I've demoed them. They're all gone. And I'm mentioning them because I think these are going to be my new, your mainstay that you kind of have in the background when I don't have anything new to try or there's nothing interesting I want to try. This is my reliable, I think, right now, where I'll go back to this, make sure I always have them just for those moments. Yeah. So these are, let me cover everything up because fuck you, Instagram. Here we go. So these are Clem and Co.'s, Clem
and Co.
Clem and Co.
It's a tough one. It's a company with a rich history. They've been around since like 1938 or something like that. Not doing cannabis. They were in agriculture.
Yeah. And these are their apricot cream and cheese 1-to-1s.
They're delicious.
And these are fucking delicious.
Yeah.
Super nice.
Even Ian, we didn't even like give precursor, nothing to Ian. We finally got a big box out to Ian out in Nova Scotia. I think that was one of the first ones he tried. And he's like, I tried this. Clem & Co. Have you guys tried this? This is delicious. And I'm like, I agree.
It's one of the
perfect buzz.
It's one of the first, I'm nowhere near as seasoned as you when it comes to cannabis, or a lot of people in the industry, but it was one of the first ones where, you people put things like apricot cream cheese in the title of things. And this is one of the first ones that I actually opened, not just opened and smelled and went, I can smell. Yeah, I can smell what's in there. Yeah. But also taste it. Like when I smoked it, I actually could taste some of those flavors, and I was blown away.
I think the terp profile is fairly high, which does not always equate. We'll find out a lot about this coming up because we got Rick from High North Labs joining us for a little bit of time here. But yeah, no, I agree. It's a 1-to-1, which always gives when done right, gives a beautiful balanced high. Not too crisp, just kind of right. I love them, and I agree. If I see them, or I still go to dispensaries because I love going to dispensaries. But with what I have kind of stockpiled, I don't need to go very often. But you're right; it's one of those ones that I'll certainly keep if I can find them. Mostly because friends, right? So I have friends that super experienced. They've been in the industry a long time, and other ones that are fairly newcomers, and I think these 1-to-1s, the ones that have a higher amount of CBD, are perfect for them. For what it's worth.
I won't be buying for a little bit, unfortunately, like you said, because I think I've got $1,000 worth of shit over there in that little bucket that I've got to.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's tough to get through them. We tried to we just because we're given something doesn't mean we mention it, or gifted something doesn't mean we mention it.
I'll say I tried someone's Maui Wowie yesterday. Man,
no bueno. That's disappointing.
No bueno. And I'll tell you this, I pulled it out of the tube, this pre-roll, and you know how we say trim your tails? Trim your fucking tails? Yeah. This one, it was like someone had said that. It was like it was a joke after we referenced it last time because it looked like a fucking candle wick.
Oh
and
my
I was
God.
like, holy shit.
Anyway. I think when it's a 1 gram pre-roll and it'll hold that and they put it in and twist it and it's just, a small 1/4 inch, that's one thing.
Yes.
But when it's a 1 gram pre-roll shell that you're using to put a 0.5 gram or 0.35 in and then you twist the end and you leave it, it's like a tampon coming out of a fucking
I was looking at it laughing. I was like, is this for real right now? But anyway.
Yeah, I hear you. It's our minor frustrations and they don't make or break the industry. But, it's the same with branding the filters that go in these pre-rolls. People, brand your filters going in the pre-rolls. Yeah. It costs pennies, like pennies. We don't always smoke the entire thing. I think it's important. There's one other thing I want to mention too before we get Rick on. So Steve Stacey, you've heard of Green Seal. Green Seal used to be a Ample client, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So he wrote a book and it's called Death by Cannabis. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, Steve. I do appreciate you sending this. And I will read it 100%. But so wrote a nice little note in the beginning to Tom, beware, killer book. I love the confidence. I'll let you know.
Nice.
But anyways, it's got some augmented reality opportunities in here you can play around with. It looks good. And one of those that you add to your list and, you certainly want to get through it. But Steve, you went out of your way to send this to me. I will 100% read this. I appreciate this. And of course, our friendly excise taxes and stuff on the back. Yeah. Excise tax. But anyways.
We do have a busy episode today. We've got
a busy
2
episode.
Guests.
Yeah,
yep.
2 guests today. So we've got Rick joining us from High North Labs. As you remember or recall, I think it was a few episodes back, we were talking about potency. I don't even pay attention anymore. I really don't. But anyways, and how all the lab testing was blown out of proportion what we're seeing in the market. So we're going to get Rick on, try to dispel some myths when it comes to that. But I also want to understand testing procedures. I mean, I can geek out over this stuff, and I don't know how they do any of it. But anyways, and then we've got Mr. Micahel Elkin, Canna Brokr on. Mike is very connected. He's done a lot in this space. Looking forward to having him on as well. But we'll get Rick on first, right after this break. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Rick Moriarty of High North Labs, Chief Operating Officer. It's a big title, buddy. How you doing?
Thank you very much. Very good. Thank you. How about you?
Very, very well. Thank you for joining Legacies. As you know, we reported some concerning news that you had worked with David Brown over at StratCan. I think it was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now. And we finally got some time to connect. And we said, we'd love to have you on the show. Let's come on and dispel some fucking rumors, myths, downright fucking bad information. Like there's some bad shit going on with testing.
It's fraud.
It's fraud.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it, but it is.
Yeah. Some of the stuff that's happening out there is unfortunately it's fraudulent. And there's definitely a few bad apples out there. But first off, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the invite. And it's always a pleasure to see what you guys are doing, see some of the people you've interviewed in the past and even today. There's a lot of great people that you guys have had on to your podcasts. And so thanks a lot for doing what you guys are doing, because one of the big ways I think to fight this is education and doing stuff like what you guys are doing.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, man.
The consumers, they're the ones that are coming out there asking for this high THC, not realizing that it really should not be what they're asking for. That's not how they should be shopping. And that's what's kind of driving, I think, the people that are maybe a little bit hurting for sales and they're grasping at straws and they're going, well, I'm going to go with this lab that's going to give me whatever number I asked them to give me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw that on the label. And Health Canada says it's okay because they're a third-party licensed analytical laboratory.
Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate to see that.
It's brutal. And I get where it comes from. I mean, even, so let's frame it a little bit. You're not new to cannabis. You're not, your journey in cannabis didn't start with High North Labs. You've been around the block a few times, right? You've experienced 25 years at least in this industry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been growing and making hash for just around 25 years now. So I've seen it from both sides. And, always back then, nobody ever said, oh, what's the THC on this?
Yeah.
Right? When you're,
Yeah. They wanted potent stuff, but it wasn't necessarily they were only going to buy because it got them the highest. That's not the only reason.
Yeah, exactly. And THC, the high THC is not even the main reason that they're going to get the highest, right? But they want to see that good bag appeal. They want to see that, they want that aroma. Those were always the two biggest things. Obviously, price, moisture. Those were other things from back in the day. There was no such thing as irradiation in that market or anything like that. So those were really the driving factors. And that is almost what it should be right now as well. Some people.
What do you think, Rick, is contributing to? Because we've seen this, like it's a race to the bottom by potency, really. If you look at it in the grand scheme of what's going on, because fraudulent lab reports, sometimes completely just made up, and we know those exist. We're not ever going to call any companies out. I don't know. Maybe I have said that if I find out which company is doing it, I will call them out. I have no problem doing that. But it is a race to the bottom in a way, because then you're just, I'm not going to say OCS is part of it, but there are certain thresholds that they have to bring products on as general listings. And in some cases, if they see that high THC products are moving well, then they want to ensure that they're capturing that part of the market. And then when they put their product calls out, they need so many flower and this THC potency. But I mean, come on, let's just continue to educate. Let's even for me, I mean, 30 plus years in this industry, one way or another, consumption mostly in the early days, obviously, but I'm not driven by potency. I don't even really look at that anymore.
I think too, that's one of the other, a smaller issue that is affecting it is the packaging. When you go into a store, you're looking at a screen or a whiteboard or something and you're going, okay, what is this store trying to sell me? What are they putting on their main screen, right? And they're possibly incentivized to sell certain products, which is a whole separate thing, unrelated to the THC. But the fact that you can't even see a product, even if when you're like, yeah, can I get a jar of this? And they bring the jar and you're about to pay, you still can't even see it.
No, you can't see it. You can't see it.
I understand there's the issue about the cleanliness and having a jar so I do get that part, but the LCBO, for example, or a liquor store that you go into across Canada, you can see the color of the, do I want an amber rum, a clear rum, that kind of stuff, right? So, and the fact that kids are allowed in those stores, kids can pick up the ball. My kids push my shopping cart around the LCBO, and they help me with my shopping there in one sense, right? They can't even come in to a store, which, or they can't even see through the glass.
You don't want to know what's happening behind those closed doors. Ugh, it's some nefarious activities.
Yeah. And then if they're getting, if there's bad stuff happening there, like a robbery or whatever, no one even knows that on the outside. So there are a lot of other things, I think, that all pile up to the fact that consumers were almost, in a sense, not forced, but that was one thing that they had to go by, right? Is, okay, 30% THC, it must be good stuff, right? And that doesn't mean it's, number one, good stuff. That doesn't mean it's accurate. And that doesn't mean it's going to get you higher.
Right.
So the education and the packaging requirements, I think, are a few things that can definitely be a big driver in helping this. OCS being one of the biggest buyers and them telling people, I'll give you a general listing, but it's got to be between 27 and 32. And they haven't even finished growing the first crop of it. And they're telling them what it has to be at for them to buy it.
Yeah.
Of course, those people are going to go around looking for a licensed lab that's going to give them whatever number that they say, it's got to be between 27 and 32. So I think it's not one factor. There's just too many things that are happening, and little things like the education and the podcast and all that kind of stuff are helping. And you guys shining a light on this too, I think is a big help. Yeah.
Well, we're trying to do our part, and I think really it's our frustration, right? Everyone's like, especially when we started out, another podcast, we got some eye rolls and that sort of thing. And we're like, yeah, we're going to do our own thing. We don't care what anyone else is doing. There's different strokes for different folks, and that's fine. But for us, we're so close to it and see what's happening. There's good companies that are using quality labs like High North that are putting out fire product. It's good product, and it may be a 20, a 22. The terpene profiles and the flavonoids are here and there, and that's good, and it all affects everything. And, you start getting those entourage effects, but then, you're driven in some cases by the potency, and you've got your, basically it's milligrams per dollar is what they're looking at. How much can I get? But when it's fraudulent, because I've had ones where someone's like, oh, you got to try this. It's 36%. And I'm like, well,
No
if it's
way.
a true 36%, which I highly doubt, I don't know if I want it. That's number one. Number two is I really question whether it is. And so let's talk a little bit about, we love David Brown. He's actually on next week, and we have him on
nice.
next week.
Yeah, he's
so
a beauty.
he's fucking awesome. And StratCan, we've been huge supporters of. We think that, if the vast majority of this industry was smart enough to get all their news sources from or news from StratCan, we'd probably be in a lot better place. But anyway, so he's on. And, in this particular article, we can make sure that we get another link up again, Wes. But you called out some things that were very startling. And some of that being is out of the vast majority of what you test. And I want to understand this because I do have the hard question. But the vast majority of your testing is 1% is over 30%, something like that.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so that's scary, right? Because we have, and I mentioned this on the podcast that we were talking about this, we have access to analytics tools. And we pull up and we can sort by potency across Canada. And we would have to say that the vast majority of what we were seeing was around 17% of products listed just in flower and pre-roll were above 30%. But in your testing, one of the most prominent, probably busiest labs in Canada, you're seeing that's a fucking huge delta, man.
Absolutely.
So first, let's start with help us understand testing procedures a little bit without going too geeky on it, because I know that you can get real geeked out on this. But help us, I'm a 5-year-old, help me understand that. But also, I have the question of how do our audience and others that would tune in or hear this, how do we know that High North Labs is using the proper testing procedures? And don't take that the wrong way. I mean,
No.
how would I
100%.
know that this lab versus High North is saying this? No, you're not seeing those percentages above 30% in only rare cases. And other labs are going, almost all the ones we test are 35%. So one, what is your testing procedures? What does that look like? And I'm sure there's, a variance in there. But also speak to why we know High North is telling the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I think one of the things too is that if I took the same flower sample and tested it twice right away on our system, on our sample prep, all that kind of stuff, it wouldn't be exactly the same. Even if I then retested the actual analytical vial, it wouldn't be exactly the same. It would be very, very close, however, right? But it's never the exact same. So the bottom line is what I'm trying to say is there's always going to be a little variance in everyone's method. That's just the way analytical testing is, nothing to do with cannabis. The matrix itself now is a whole different thing too, because it can be a lot of variance in the actual flower. Flower is not a homogenized product, right? There can be different cannabinoid and terpene and other kinds of metabolic content throughout the bud itself, throughout the one stem with multiple buds on it, throughout different areas in your environment. If you don't have if some of these people, with those massive rooms, right? And, there's no way the environment is going to be exactly the same all over. And then Health Canada goes, we have no limit to batch size here in Canada.
That's always blowing our mind, by the way, that Wes, you remember those days from Ample. And I was like, you've got a fucking room of, 100,000 square feet with all these plants in it, and you only have to send in the same amount of sampling because it's called a batch. That's one batch.
Yeah.
That is a major fail on Health Canada's part right from the fucking get-go, if you ask me.
It's agreed. In my opinion, that's something that I've always said. Health Canada, that's one of the regulations amongst many that they need to have another look at other, like California is 50 pounds is the max batch size.
Wow.
Nevada, I think, is 3 pounds, which is a little bit, that's getting a little bit, so somewhere in the middle or even 50, whatever. Right. But we got these people that are pulling hundreds of kilos down from a massive room, and they're sending in, 30 grams to an analytical lab to say, test this. This is representative of my hundreds of kilos. No way.
Even if they're not doing any nefarious activities, 30 grams for that much, like there's so much variance, hot and weak spots within the grow room. Someone overwatered here. The nutrient lines plugged there. There's better lighting here. There's way too much variance going on.
Yeah, exactly. So that makes the actual matrix, the cannabis flower itself, not as homogeneous, right? So that plays a factor as well across whatever lab. And that's where us as a lab, we ask for a lot more sample than your average lab because we want to get a larger sample, homogenize it ourselves, and then begin the sample extraction.
Okay.
And that's where we go through. And the other thing too is that there is no standard for what kind of solvent you have to use for cannabinoid sample preparation.
Okay.
Right. So we use a particular one. A lot of labs use that one too. Some labs use other ones. Then from there too, we also are ISO 17025, which is the ISO for analytical laboratories.
Okay.
And with that, you have to do proficiency testing. We already were prior to getting our ISO accreditation, but look for a lab that is doing proficiency testing for
So they don't all have
tests.
that? They don't all have to have that?
No, but Health Canada does not require that. So they don't require proficiency testing. They don't require ISO accreditation. You can get your license.
What do you need to have then as a lab? Like, I'm going back to my days in steel and, ISO 2, what was it originally? 9001, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, there's various accreditation, you know what I mean?
Accreditations.
Accreditations that are available. That would just seem like table stakes to me.
Exactly. In California now has introduced that you have to be ISO 17025. So for them, the Bureau of Cannabis or California Bureau of Cannabis Control, whatever they're called over there. Yeah. That's a step in the right direction. I think that's something that we really need to be doing here. You have to have some kind of proficiency testing, in my opinion, because there is no standardized method. And standardizing a method, a lot of people have called out, oh, why don't they make a standardized method? That's also difficult too, because people have different equipment, They have different solvents, they have different sample preparation. I think there could be a good guidelines that are standardized. But if you do proficiency testing and show you're within, the allowable percentage, I don't see why that isn't the biggest step in the right direction for ensuring all licensed third-party analytical laboratories are playing on the same ball field.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, different mitts, different bats, that sort of thing. I get it, but come on, okay.
Yeah. So
I just so many things going through my head now. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So do you feel there'd be if Health Canada were to say, look, we need everyone to get this, you have to have it. Yeah. Are there labs that just would not exist? Would they just not qualify? Is it
100%? Yeah. There are labs that would not be able to do it. There's a whole bunch of reputable labs in Canada. It's not just High North. Obviously, I want to feel that we're the best and everything, but that's my own biased opinion. However, there are still a handful of other reputable labs out there that can do cannabis testing. So and some of them already have their ISO, and some of them have cannabis methods on their ISO scope of accreditation. So an ISO scope of accreditation is available publicly online. That's part of ISO rules. And when you look at a lab, if they don't have their cannabis methods on there, they're doing, food testing and whatever, cow feed testing, other kinds of stuff. And that's what they got their ISO in. Then they get to claim, hey, we're an ISO lab, but you're not ISO accredited for cannabis testing.
Okay. Interesting.
Right? Yeah. And then certain QAs just go, is the lab ISO? Check, on their vendor qualification program.
Yeah.
So you really have to look at not just the fact that they're ISO, but that they have the cannabis methods, especially cannabinoid testing in this case.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Never would have thought of that either. Pay attention, everyone. You need to watch that. I'm glad you pointed it out.
Oh, sorry, Tom. I've got a quick question for you too, Rick. So the other part of that article with David, I think that was shocking to both Tom and I was the samples that you went and picked up off the shelves. You just went to the stores and grabbed those samples and tested those. With some of those, a good majority of them being wildly out of deviation. Not even like 3 or 5, not even 12. Like some of them, like as extreme as 96%, I believe was what was quoted in that article. What, other than just being blatantly false, what could a lab or an LP be doing to get that number, to get that wide of a deviation?
Pay to play. If you look at that, there was 3 different lots, and they were 38.06, 38.04, 38.02, or something like that.
Right.
And they were all different strains and or genetics and all that kind of stuff. There's no way they didn't just say, give me some 38s, but make them a little bit different or something like that, right? And one of them came back at 31%. Like, what? That's a high THC product to begin with. Why are you trying to lie and say it's 38?
Right.
What, that one you're quoting came back around 19 or
Right.
something, like
That's the
literally
one.
half,
Yeah.
right? So,
But there's nothing, let's be clear though, Rick, there's nothing. I mean, I've stored cannabis a long time. I've cured it for a long time. I've done the, burping methods, etc. I get shelf stable cannabis where I think it's going to be shelf stable anyways, because we know there's some shit that happens there too, but it goes out 20%. Is there anything over the course of a year that could happen to that where it's going to degrade or lower the cannabinoid content that much?
Not that much. It will begin degrading immediately. It already is the second you're essentially curing it. And we've done some tests, even some of the tests as part of that we saw, oh wow, High North tested this 8 months ago.
Right.
Now the result, total THC is pretty much the same. However, Delta 9 and THC completely different. THC-A went down, Delta 9 went up, but the total remained essentially the same.
Okay.
And that's because it's just naturally decarbing. It's breaking down in the container, whatever it's stored in. We don't see much of that CBN, like a lot of people are saying, oh, it's converting to CBN. That seems to take a really, really long time and only small amounts. You can still see it for sure, but that difference between the THCA and the Delta 9 THC, that's where we can really see, kind of get into the age of the cannabis flower itself.
Interesting. Huh. So,
and other cannabinoids too, not just THC.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So how long from what you understand of it anyways, how long has this been going on?
I think since around 2022, it seemed to really take off with one particular lab in question.
Right.
That started, looking for clients. And I believe the way they were looking for clients was telling them, we will give you high THC results.
Yeah.
And that spiral effect, I think, just kind of took off. Yeah. And then word of mouth traveled, and
it's funny how
sales.
they try to keep that stuff on the down low, thinking, oh, if you need this, a little sleight of hand here, we'll do this, right? But nothing can ever be covered up forever. Right?
No.
Eventually this comes out. So I would suspect that any of these labs that are doing this, Health Canada would be made aware at some point. But then it also comes back to some of your previous points, which is standardization, ISO, some of these different effects. But there's so many questions that I want to ask about this, but I do want to ask some other questions about just testing. So tell us a little bit more about High North, because you guys have been around since like inception of the Cannabis Act, correct?
Yeah, pre-legalization.
Yeah.
It was actually my partner, John Slaughter, and CEO.
Yeah.
It was his idea. He created High North. He came up with the idea, and it was a brilliant idea. I thought it was I was always on the growing side.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Cannabis,
like it's,
right?
So everyone's going this way, they're swimming upstream, and John goes, we're going to go over here. We're going to do the testing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's smart. As a business decision, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, once he called me up and said, hey, I want to do this. You want to come with me? I'm like, you know what? Yeah, now's the time. Trudeau was about to get in and legalize and all that kind of stuff, right? And it was like, okay, because John started doing that testing and rating for the legacy market at the time, right?
Right, yeah.
And with me, I was in construction, like site management and stuff like that, right? So it's like, it's tough. I just had my first kid.
Yeah.
Getting a steady weekly paycheck. It's a little bit difficult, right? But, once the broader picture came in, I was like, yeah, let's do this, right? So, and that's where we raised some money. We purchased the building that we're in now, and built High North Laboratories. And ever since then, it's kind of just been, word of mouth. We don't do too much marketing, a little bit of advertising with David on StratCan, a couple things like that. but nothing major. We put on a charity golf tournament that we bring a lot of great people across the industry once a year. And we just kind of, always had our stick on the ice and maintain that integrity. We want to do quality, consistent testing. And we're only focused on weed. Our only job is cannabis.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not a food, environment, all that kind of stuff lab. We want to help you, the cannabis producer, processor, nursery, whatever kind of cannabis license you have, as well as a backyard grower. Right. We sponsor, what is it? 38th Street or whatever. Can't remember the name of that seed company.
Oh yeah. 38
Yeah.
seed or 38 seed streets. Yeah. Something like that.
It's ANC Cannabis, but whatever they're.
Yeah, that's right. ANC. And they've just launched, there's a brand that they've just launched in the market as well. Status. It's called Status.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great group of guys out there. So what we sponsor their event where people grow their seeds in their backyard.
Yeah, I've seen
right?
that. So wild. That's very cool.
It's kind of cool to come to do certain events like a grow up or whatever, right? You see a guy come up and he's like, "Oh man, you tested my stuff. It was so cool that, I'm talking to them like that." It's pretty cool to see, right? Because there's nothing more that I like than a good quality cannabis product.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just me personally, right?
Yeah.
And sun grown when done well is amazing. Something with the sun and
full spectrum. I mean, you're getting it all. Yeah.
It's got the most you look at, we've done some hash rosin contests, and then all of a sudden you look in the top 3 and so, that was outdoor, that was outdoor, and that was outdoor.
Right.
Okay. Gee, I wonder the best resin is produced then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're not talking swamp weed either or ditch weed. Like, these are meticulously maintained outdoor grows. And there's a lot of even, hobbyist grower, home grower, at scale. Sure. But I've seen that as well. Right. You used to know, like back in those days. What's that?
You're telling me that nature knows what it's doing? Come on, let's be realistic here.
But, so all those lights are trying to reproduce the sun, and it's just nothing better than the sun, right?
So, Rick, when we were meeting, we started talking about terps a little bit. I think I was even wearing a "Show Me Your Terps" T-shirt, which probably sparked it. I want to remove any rumors or myths about that as well. So. Because in the early days, terps weren't even getting tested, right? It was, I think it was an add-on service. You can get your terps tested. Some companies do, some companies don't. What is the importance, or none, in your opinion, of testing the terps and putting those on bottles or making them available?
I think, and terpenes still are not a required test by Health Canada.
Right.
And I think that's where some of that got away, where people weren't doing it because it was an extra cost and they weren't putting it on the label, so no one cared for it. However, more and more people seem to want to see that on the label, and therefore, and people want to, like producers want to see that as far as determining quality in one sense. I think it really shows a picture when there is a good terpene profile and especially the pinene, and you can tell that they didn't screw it up on their drying process, because there's a lot of great producers out there, and some of them just screw it all up in their post-harvest handling. And then we see it in the terpene profile. We're going, why? This was so nice, or we toured their facility, it was looking so nice, and then they speed dry it, they whatever they can to get it to the market as quick as possible, and not understanding that 10 to 15, whatever it takes to do a nice, slow, cold, pure dry before you start processing that product really makes a big difference. And that's where we see it. It doesn't seem to really affect THC or cannabinoid content, but you really do see it in the terpenes. And the terpenes are one of the biggest factors to that aroma.
Right.
And it's not just terpenes. There's ketones, esters, aldehydes, flavonoids, and those all really add up to the total aroma. And that's where we want to get into, providing you with an aroma, like a report on your aroma, as opposed to just terpenes.
Right. And do you do that now?
So somewhat, we do offer flavonoids. We do have some ketones, some esters, some aldehydes, some alcohols that we're currently testing as part of our terpene package. But what we want to do is provide an aroma analysis and separate those different analytes underneath that aroma on the COA, on the certificate of analysis.
Okay.
So we're working on that to help where then you can actually look at a product and see what the aroma is like and what is the undertones, what the nose is of that product, especially since you can't open it, you can't smell it.
Well, and so on the note of COAs, who are COAs important to now, right? Because we used to have to track those at Ample, make sure that we could upload them, et cetera, et cetera. We will see them. I'm a geek when it comes to some of this. So if I know it's available, I'll look for it. But I think it might come back to some education. Consumers aren't necessarily like, hey, what's your COA on this? Unless, they've been in the industry a long time, potentially. But you do see them, they get posted. I think Pastil in Paris is one that I know for a fact. They make sure that they're putting their COAs up. Who are they important to other than Health Canada? Like, is it retailers? Is it consumers? Like,
some bud tenders that like when I come in with a High North shirt or whatever, they're like, oh, High North, we love seeing your COAs. We ask for your COA, that kind of stuff, right? So, and I think also with that reputation that us and a few other labs have, that really shows the integrity of that brand, of that producer, right? Who are they testing with? Are they testing with one of the handful of known fraudulent labs out there?
Right.
That means I can't trust this result. Or are they testing with someone that is reputable and I can actually trust this label claim? Because we know Health Canada or the OCS aren't really enforcing anything with regards to that.
Yeah.
They don't care what lab you tested it with.
Yeah.
Right. Just the fact that you did test it and then, print the label.
Right. Right. It's taking me back to 30 years ago in buying cars and, there was no certainties and, you get a safety certificate, but you don't know. I mean, it could be out the back door and you paid an extra $100 and you got a safety certificate potentially. It just seems wrong. I don't know why any businesses would want to necessarily operate like that. And you're right. The vast majority of the COAs I see posted are the ones that High North has done. A couple others as well. Yep. But certainly the ones that are most prominent that we see are the High North COAs.
Yeah. And to add to that too, you can't even put a link on the label, like a QR code, right? Yeah. So again, packaging, you want the consumers to be educated. There, select, boom, there's the actual COA from whatever lab they tested it with, and it's right there online. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's, it's being tabled, through reform. They're talking about the potential to have a QR on it, but we really need a system that's going to bring it all, because we already know where this is going to go, right? There'll be marketing tied to it. There'll be COAs tied to it. There'll be product information tied. They'll all be different. We may or may not be working on something to solve that. I don't know. But anyways, Wes fucking hates when I say anything. But anyways, so let's bring it back to, what we're seeing in the industry. How do consumers, bud tenders, and even producer processors, give them the information they need to be educated on the labs you're choosing, but why this is important to the end consumer?
I think they need to audit the labs, right? Okay. And as far as, are they ISO 17025 with cannabis, the cannabis methods that I, as the client, need, are they on the scope of accreditation? If they are, you already know they're doing the proficiency testing, all that kind of stuff, because we see a lot of times where we get audited and it's just a check mark. Do you have a sanitation program? Yes. Do you have a pest program? Yes. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that's further. And some people may not need to take the time for that. They're relying on you and being honest and have that integrity, right? And that's okay too. But when you got that scope of accreditation, it's so easily verifiable. It's a quick Google scope of accreditation, High North Labs or whatever, right? And there it is on the third party ISO provider's website.
Yeah.
So, and as far as the consumers, I think they need to, and the retailers need to be going, okay, you want me to buy your product? No problem. Send me all your COAs. And when they go, oh, this product, I can't share the COA, or I'll just share the cannabinoids from it, right? And they share it from that one lab that we all know is no good. And they don't want to share anything else because it's either failed, gone to irradiation, all that kind of stuff. Or the fact that they're using like 4 labs for all their different tests.
Right. It's just crazy. Why spend the extra money unless you absolutely have to? Right.
Yeah, because there's something fishy going on there, right? When you see, and we've got a lot of great clients that, and it's not just with us. They may be other great clients for other labs that test everything on one COA, one representative sample, whatever it is. That's the result, and that's everything on there. And they're growing good, clean cannabis.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need irradiation.
Right.
I mean, Australia,
some do.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
Australia requires it, for example.
Yeah.
So all this great product that's got to go to Australia has to be irradiated, or
we see that in Europe too.
Yeah, I should say remediated, whether it's whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Just most common is irradiation. But if it's a good quality product that's you got a great sanitation policy or program going at your facility, you likely will not have any issues.
Mm-hmm.
And we have plenty of clients that are like that with no issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely it can. And it's, you brought up a really important point, which is in this, under the medical regime for these different regions or countries that are forming, EU GMP, EU GXP, like true EU GMP, not this bullshit printed off on your computer, slap it on a door that we see. They're taking some of this great product that has come from Canada. We saw what was going on with Israel and, we got whatever. But we're taking great product and we're, e-beaming it or whatever they're doing to it, depending on the region. But they're irradiating it. And it's like, why? It was so good. But under the pharmacology, they have to follow those rules. So red flags. Let's talk red flags for a second. If you're seeing 30+% across the board at a dispensary, if I'm a consumer and I want to know, is this truly legit? What do I do? How do I, because excuse me, I may see a brand I like and I'm like, oh, that's 35. But as we know, there's very few that are testing above that. How do I know? How do I, as a consumer, how do I know? There may be 7 different products that are available.
Yeah. I would say the threshold for whole dried flower is anything above 34.0 is very, very, very questionable.
Right.
There's been a lot of push towards using genetics that are high THC. And there are like Black Triangle and a few other ones, right, that are just, and GMO that are just high THC.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they take that and they're crossing it with something that's got a lot more flavor and stuff like that. And sometimes they get lucky with the phenotype that is actually got high THC as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so there are people pushing the boundaries with that. There really are. But there's not, 34, 35, there's upwards 41 or whatever that celebrity crap was, like ridiculous. So I think, unfortunately, that consumer has to do research. Without this, without the fact that OCS and Health Canada aren't enforcing certain things, it now is put onto the consumer to do that research. And there are some retailers even that are doing the research for the consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going, okay, no, this 37 or 38 or whatever, no way, I'm not carrying that. It's not legitimate. I don't know what it tests at, but it's not 38.
Yeah.
I'm not going to carry it in my store. And some of those people, right, that have that integrity, some of those retailers, you can actually trust, what they have on their board there for sale because they're not looking at that number unless it's out of range.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that someone is selling a 29% that's really an 18 though. That wouldn't set off the red light, for example, right?
Yeah.
Unless they get that COA from one of those handful of labs that go, oh shit, I don't trust this lab.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a retailer, I would start questioning things, right? So you want to stock the high potency ones that are true high potency, but from a business standpoint, the last thing I would want is, customer comes in looking for your highest potency. Oh, I've got this 38 and they take it home. If they are looking for the highest potency, chances are that's what they consume. And so you sell them a 38 and they're like, there's no way. I wasn't even that
didn't
high.
Even get high.
So now you've lost the trust potentially, but you may lose a customer completely because now they're going to go to a different retail location or a different dispensary. I would think that's a problem. So I would want to, as a retailer, pay very close attention to that. So one last question. I'm curious about this. Wes and I actually talked about this a little bit after, and I think that it was spun out from, you had talked about, and I won't share the specifics of the story, but there was certain flour that needed to test at something. You talked to them. They said, yeah, probably not going to happen. And then sure enough, this product made it to market. Do you offer any consulting services where I'm like, okay, listen, guys, I want to do this. I mean, you've tested so much weed, right? So many different cultivars or strains. can they come to you and go, listen, I need to hit this terp, this flavonoid, these aroma profiles with this THC? Do you go, yeah, you want to look at this cultivar or maybe breed these two together? Do you do any of that? Because I would think you're in a perfect position with all these data points.
Yeah, so we don't officially do that. Like I honestly, I do that just having a chat like I am with you guys, right? And because I just want to see the industry grow. I just want to see people succeed in the industry. We're only in weed. The better that they're doing, the better that we're going to do. Right. So I just want the testing, essentially.
Yeah.
And when they succeed and they need testing, they're going to come back to me, right? So I'm always happy to give advice like that. And or also point them in the right direction. Hey, speak with this person. I know they've got this genetic. I know they've got, these kind of clones available right now. And they're, I don't know the price, but you guys talk it out. The same kind of thing we're doing even with export sales.
Okay.
People from other countries are coming to us and going, hey, we need X amount of this genetic. Do you know anyone with it? Yeah, we know 3 people. We just tested, blah, blah, blah. Put you in contact. You guys chat it out. We don't want anything to do with it other than hopefully the testing when it comes, right?
Right.
So essentially, that's where we're at. We're not really, trying to sell our time in that sense. We just want to lend our time, get some testing and help the industry grow and push it forward in the right direction too.
Yeah. Well, that's a genuine approach. And as soon as you talked about export, I'm like, oh my God, you guys are going to be overwhelmed with questions and connections and networking if you're not already.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, because as all these different markets are forming up, they're looking for import opportunities. And I would think that's probably the best stop. Hey, go to a reputable lab. They have all the connections.
Yeah, no, and that's what some people are doing. I mean, John and I had a call earlier before this with Portugal, right? So, and that was part of that was for Ukraine. Ukraine's about to open up.
Yeah.
It's got to go through Poland. But as far as the cannabis industry in Ukraine, even though they're in the middle of a war, so I don't really know how that works, unfortunately for them. But it's kind of crazy in that sense that they're still focused on getting that medicine to people who need it there.
Yeah.
So
it makes sense.
We want to do what we can to help. And then you brought up one thing too, Israel. So Israel and Quebec, 2 people with limits on THC flower, yet the same products are going in Ontario, Quebec, Israel. Can see them in the 3 different places, right?
Yeah.
But Israel, depending on who you talk to, it's either 24.0, 24.4, or 24.5 is the limit.
Yeah.
And then Quebec, as we all know, is 30.
Right.
So it's interesting to see how people can put, or regulatory bodies like that can put a limit on THC and have people that are playing selling the same products that are 30 plus, right? Still selling over there or exporting to Israel.
Right. Yeah, that blows my mind. I wouldn't even have thought it that way. And even the same product and distribution, because I have seen this where in Quebec, it's, I don't know, call it 26, 27, exact same product available in potentially Ontario or BC is at a higher THC. Now, lot numbers, batch numbers, okay, I get it. But when it's time and time and time again, you start to question it. But anyways, Rick, this has been very informative. We want to get you on for a full episode in the near future.
Sure.
But we appreciate you helping us understand this crazy world and what's going on. And we hope that we're able to educate, our audience on exactly what's going on. And there's a lot of change, a lot of reform that still needs to happen. But I think at least, just having the conversation about it, making more people aware, because we live in the context of this industry day in, day out. And we forget that, even when you talk to your friends, you forget that a million times more about the industry and what's going on than what is truly going on or what their understanding may be. So, having these conversations, hopefully it helps, and I'm sure it will. But anyways, we appreciate your time, man. We know how busy you guys are.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having us and or having me, and look forward to chatting further.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Have a great day, my friend, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you
man.
too. Cheers.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Mr. Micahel, Elkin, Canna Brokr. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing, Tom?
I'm very well. Very well.
Good to see you.
Been excited to get you on. You're always gallivanting around the fucking world, though. So
Yeah. It's a nice chase. I said to somebody the other day, they texted me, they said, can we reschedule the call? I'm super busy. I said, super successful people are super busy. That's why I chase super successful people.
There you go.
That's sort of something that I try.
It's always true, right? I've gone right back into the Nightingale era of listening to the motivation and positivity and manifestation. And there's a lot of themes about following the follower and following the follower. And the vast majority of people, they just assume you're following the right people, right? Show me your friends, I'll show you the future, or show you your future. That's what I always tell my kids.
Yeah. I don't want to go off on so many. I know this is going to be probably a show.
No, we can.
Tangent,
that's the beauty about this.
Yeah, we have nothing specific to talk about. But it's I've read a few books in the last 3 years. I've been on this reading kick, and that, chance doesn't exist, luck doesn't exist. These are words that we've humans come up with. And I tell people, you can manipulate time. They say you can never make any more, but you can manipulate. And they say, what are you talking about? I say, if you follow the successful people, you just have to be wherever they are, which is why I'm continuously gallivanting and off and surrounding myself in those circles where, I tell people, you must be pretty great because I'm here. And it's not that I'm anything. It's just if you have someone that's chasing greatness and then you find yourself in front of those people, it's a great sort of tie into how we end up on this podcast, is because I'm so close to Jay Schwartz at Mendo. And at Grow Up, he was just literally, in his soft-spoken voice, was like, I got to introduce you to someone. And then here he introduces me to you and Wes, and then the story of you guys and the holistic, organic meeting. Nothing is organic. It's the same thing. It's to those who have everything, more will be given. And from those who have nothing, everything will be taken. So, as you succeed more and more and higher and higher. And as you fail, you attach yourself to the failing people, they bring you down. So
that's right. Yeah. It's 100% true. And we can, take points in time throughout history to prove that. One of the things that I love, and I can't remember where I seen it. It might've been Simon Sinek. I forget where it was. Doesn't matter. The point was, it was a psychologist talking about luck. Did I tell you this story? I can't remember. So she said, listen, on your way to the studio, because they were in a podcast, they said, on the way to the studio, tell me how many red cars you saw. And he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure how many. I'm sure I saw some. And she's like, exactly. But what if I were to ask you to watch for and count all the red cars on the way here? And he's like, yeah, well, of course I'd be able to tell you. And she said, that's luck. She said, luck is defined by what just happens. But the fact is that when you're looking for it, you will find it. Right. So anyways, for all of our audiences, little fun here we're having today.
That's it.
Mike, for those that don't know, because, in this industry, I don't think you need an introduction. But for those that have been living under a rock, you're Mike Elkin, you're the Canna broker, but you have been in this space a long time. You can see that you've traveled a lot. You've got probably the most amount of stickers and paraphernalia I've ever seen gathered. This has got to be the biggest collection in the industry, I think.
Yeah. There's some good people out there, but
how did you get into the industry? Let's start with that.
My origin story into the space is and again, there's no luck, there's no chance. It's being at the right place at the right time. And I, in my previous life, I used to sell advertising. I used to sell advertising at sporting and cultural events. This was in 2010, 2011, before. So I think Twitter just had really started to take off and everyone was hashtagging everything. Anyway, so I used to sell advertising at the Formula One, the World Cup that was in Paris, Super Bowl. And then I started dating this girl, and her godfather owned a very big physical security company. So cameras, access control, alarms. And it was in end of 2011, he tells me, he goes, because I was dating her for a while at that time, we've become close. He goes, I'm going to give you a very good business opportunity. And he explained to me that in the next year to coming years, that the technology of cameras was going to be changing, much like your TVs that used to have those box TVs that would screw with the cable in the back. Everything was going to be changing with the full blown explosion of the internet. And cameras specifically were, instead of being plugged in with a coax cable, were going to be plugged in with an Ethernet cable. So every one of these cameras is going to act like a computer, and you're going to be able to look at video on your phone and blah, blah, blah. He's like, if you're smart, you can start a company and I'll connect you to all the right people, and you could just rip and replace security equipment around the country. Everybody from a 7-Eleven to a mom and pop, they will not be able to use their cameras anymore because everything is going to be antiquated or outdated and blah, blah, blah. He goes, well, the one caveat is that you have to start this company with your soon-to-be wife's brother. And I was like, okay, no problem. Me and her brother got along. We start this company. 6 months into the company, everything starts to go sour. We were already married, I think 6 months at the time. And I was like, I'm either going to kill your brother or we're going to be divorced. Funny as that ends up playing later in the story. So I ended up quitting the company. I sold him whatever shares that were in the company off. He went, the company still exists to this day. So that was 12 years ago. And I think it was like 2 or 3 months after I wasn't doing anything. And the Godfather, who lived in Ottawa, calls me up. He goes, okay, pack all your shit in the car, put my goddaughter in the car, and you're going to move to Ottawa and you're going to come and sell security equipment. Same way you were doing with the brothers company, but you're going to do it for me. I was a very, very good salesman. And I was like, shit, I'm not doing anything. So in the summer of 2013, me and my then wife moved to Ottawa with our dog. And I started selling security equipment, and it was great because I was backed by this national security company and I was selling like shopping mall centers and blah, blah, blah. And I think it was in August of 2013, I'm driving to work one day and I hear on the radio, there's a company that's going to be buying the old rundown Hershey factory in Smiths Falls and turning it into a medical marijuana facility. And I was like, first of all, what? And then I was like, second of all, Smiths Falls is 45 minutes from Ottawa.
Right.
I might as well just like drive there. So I literally drove that day to Smiths Falls. I show up at the Hershey factory and I'm like, wow, this place is in rough shape. And it looks like a prison and a hospital, both of which this security company that I was working for that was their number one like core of business. They were a government contractor. So then I show up the next day and I start like going online. I start reading about this. Back then it was the MMPR, I believe that was getting ready to be launched. And the government and the conservative government, Stephen Harper, were going to license the initial facilities to support the medical program. And then I remember like scrolling or reading whatever I was doing. And I remember falling upon, I think it was Directive 28 or something like that. And it said physical security requirements and storage for medical cannabis and storage areas. And it was one fucking page from this entire directive. And it's like cameras everywhere that there's cannabis, cameras in the hallways, 2 years of video storage. And my eyes, and I was like, wow.
You're just going,
I'm like, wow,
cha-ting.
2 years of video storage. I'm looking at this Hershey factory, which is like 200,000 square feet. I'm like, they're going to need 300 cameras. 2 years of storage. They're going to need like petabytes of servers. So then I show up the next day. I start taking pictures. I show up to the fourth day, taking pictures. I'm walking around the entire facility. I'm knocking on doors, nothing. I start like drawing in my pad. I'm starting to like actually like write a security directive. It's Friday at like 5 o'clock. I'm doing my this is 5 days in a row. I'm walking around and walk up to the front where I think it was still like a Hershey sign at the front, a blue door. I knock on the door and I like walk away and then the door opens up and it was like Wizard of Oz meets Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, like what? And there was a guy standing there and he's laughing. He's like, dude, what do you want? He's like, we've been watching you in this boardroom.
I was going to say, he's probably been watching you for 5 fucking days.
He's like, this guy's bad. Is he selling Bibles? What does he want? And I was like, no, I'm not a Bible salesman. No, I'm not Avon calling. I work for the biggest national security, blah, blah, blah. We do correctional services. We've secured the Parliament Hill. And I handed him this binder. And it's like, here's a security directive for the security directive for controlled cannabis, the MMPR. And he was like, you're crazy. This is amazing. And that guy was Chuck Raffici.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. And then he brings me in through the front door. I walk up to the boardroom and there was this like empty boardroom with a giant, like about 30 or 40 tables squared around. And it was Chuck Raffici. It was Bruce Linton. It was Mark Zelicukin. It was this guy, Brian Greenleaf, who was the operations manager. And I forget the other guy. And they're like, we got him.
Yeah.
This guy does it. Like, and then they're like, and he does cameras. And they're like, he does cameras. He's going to do the whole facility. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do the whole facility. And then that was like in August and we went through like a whole bunch of blah, blah, blah. And then I remember the day because it was October 21st, 2013. I was in, I think it was Hamilton, wherever Mohawk College.
Yeah,
it's
Hamilton. Yeah,
I was there at a facility security summit or whatever it was. And there was like a 3-day conference. My solo read is the second day. It's Chuck. He goes, let's go. We just got word from Health Canada. We can plant our seeds. Let's go. I literally, in like 5 seconds, I like throw the entire like trade show team together. I'm in the car and I go from Hamilton to Smith Falls. I meet an entire team at the facility. And as we were like hanging cables, I forget his name, Ryan, the first ever master grower for Canopy, or then known as Tweed, was reeling in the clones. We're hanging cameras. And on October 21st, we installed the first phase of security for Canopy, and then we got paid, which was even crazier.
Whoa! People get paid in this industry.
We got paid, and then I was like, this is going to be something.
Yeah.
So I immediately went from doing that job, which took like a month and change or whatever it was. I went to Toronto, and there was a miners conference, a gold mining conference, because that's where everybody was, and it was called the Green Rush Summits. And I remember seeing this guy up on stage, and he was a lawyer, and he was talking, and I couldn't really understand him. And he's like, "Yeah, we got this 7-acre greenhouse in Kincardine, Ontario," and that was John Fowler.
Yeah.
And I remember, and he'll hold true to this day because I'm dear friends with him. And I went up, and I was like, I just did Canopy's facility, and I remember I was at the show, and I had this binder that had the Tweed name on it, and the picture of the facility, and it was the entire security director. And I was like, I just did their facility, they're getting licensed, blah blah blah. And I said to him, I'm gonna do your security directive for free, because at that time, what happened was there was no consulting firm, there was no like one-stop shop. You had to get a lawyer, an accountant, someone that knew how to do SOPs. Someone that needed to like a learning quality management software. And then you need a security guy. Okay. And everybody put the documents together and shipped this like 1,000-word page document to Health Canada. Yeah. And I was like, I want to do your security for free. And he was like, huh? I was like, on the contingency that when you get your license, we get the purchase order.
Okay.
Because at the time, like there were consultants out there like David Hyde and George. Anyways, and they were charging like $30,000-$40,000 for a security directive, and that was totally game. But I wanted the $500,000 PO. I wanted the $350,000 worth of servers, and and at that time, like doing something for free. So John was like, "Yeah, sure." So boom, I wrote it, and sure as day, they got their license. We got like a $900,000 purchase order, and then from 2013 to 2016, I rinsed and repeated. I met up with Adam Morin and Seb, who owned Hydropothecary at the time, which then became Hexo. I met Janet, who owns Green Organic Dutchman. I met Cam at Aurora, and the guys who own the original Delshin / 48 North. 48 North.
Yeah.
I was in Timmins when they were like, in the middle of winter, hanging cameras.
Of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, it was like Swastika Timmins or something weird like that. And I was like, here's a Jew hanging cameras. So
where the fuck did you bring me?
Yeah.
I remember we had Delshen originally as Delshen. And I remember it was one of John Prentice's childhood buddies was working there doing IT or something. We had him to the Ample offices, and I spent like a week training him on the software and showing him around. But that facility was like literally in the middle of fucking nowhere. Connectivity was horrible.
It was an old Government of Canada nursery, like for spruce trees or pine trees.
Yeah,
and
it was something like that. Yeah, but I mean, like, what a wicked fucking story. I remember the announcement in 2013, Tweed coming online. At the time I was under MMAR, or just about to get my MMAR. And then they went MMPR to the ACMPR to the Cannabis Act.
Yeah.
But I still remember it was big fucking news, right? Like every single media outlet was covering it.
Oh yeah.
Hershey's becoming a weed factory.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, how the fuck does that
From
happen?
candy to cannabis. I remember the headlines.
Yeah. But I mean, meeting Chuck like day one, wow, that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
But first of all, I didn't know this. John is a lawyer?
He was a lawyer, and
he was a lawyer.
He was a lawyer, and he was working, I believe, cannabis cases.
Okay,
something like that. And
Interesting.
I remember Like,
and he's so soft spoken and just like laid back, eh? And I could just imagine your energy coming in and going, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And he'd be like, okay, man, well, we'll see how it goes. Let's,
and I've come down a lot. Like I was, and it was, so me and the security team did about like 20 something facilities. We did about $28 million in cannabis security from 2013 to 2016. And then by the end of 2016, I was burnt out because I was selling the deal. And then I was hedging my bets too. Like I think in 3 years, I must have written like 80 or 90 security directives.
Wow.
And we got like 20 or 30, so like 30%. But at the same time, like I would then win the job and then travel with a team to the facility, start like the project management, then go off to a trade show, sign a new client, install the facility. And these are places like Regina, right? Like I'm in the middle of, this isn't like I'm going to like Sacramento or California where it's warm.
No, they were spending as little money as they could to acquire these places in the middle of fucking nowhere.
So at the end of 2016, I get a LinkedIn DM from this guy named Brian Wagner.
Oh,
and the name, I had known the name, and then he sends me this DM. He's like, hey, another soft-spoken guy. My name's Brian Wagner. I run NHP Consulting. I've been on a bunch of applications where your name has been involved in the piecemeal on the security directive. And he's like, and I have this neat idea to start a one-stop shop cannabis consulting firm that will literally turn into like a licensed shop. And he's like, I have me that's going to take care of the SOPs. I have this other two gentlemen. One guy's going to do sales. One guy's going to do accounting and lawyer stuff. And he's like, I want you to do the security directives. And I was like, I don't have to sell. He goes, you don't have to sell. I said, I don't have to go install in the middle of bumfuck nowhere in the middle of winter. He goes, you don't have to do any of that. I was like, well, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that.
Yeah. And I want green Skittles in my green room.
Yeah. And he was like, okay. And at the time, like I also had a very good knack of undervaluing myself.
Mm.
And I was exhausted at the time. So I remember and he was like, okay, whatever you want. He goes, yeah. So he gives me a contract. And I remember walking into my godfather, because now we're married 3 years. We have our first kid. And I remember walking into his office and I'm like, and I was like, I'm tired and, we've done all this business and I'd love to, have skin in the game. Because at the time, I didn't get a raise for 3 years from this guy. He's like, he gave me a job and he was like,
what more do you want?
What more do you want?
Job?
Yeah. And I was like, look at this great offer. And he was like, yeah, that is a great offer that you should take. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, I can't. He's like, I won't do it. I won't. He's like, yeah, you built up this business, blah, blah, blah. He's like, but that's an offer you need to take. And I was like resentful and I was like, this motherfucker. And I was like, and it was my then wife who was like, yeah, you're taking it. You're walking away from him. And
wow,
he did very well. He sold the company to a giant security overlord named Paladin Technologies. And in December of 2016, me, Brian Wagner, Raul Rajan, and rest in peace, Garrett. I forget his last name. I forget his last name. Anyways, started NHP Consulting, the cannabis division.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like January, February, and then I remember everything became real. I went to the first ever ICBC in April of 2016 in Berlin, Germany.
Yeah.
And I remember we had a client, the first ever client of NHP Cannabis Division, which was a gentleman named Art Bloom, who owned Bloom House, which then turned into Greybeard. So
wow.
It was me and him and we were in Berlin. And I was like, this is what I've been chasing my entire life. This feeling of purpose, of belonging. I had always dreamt of being someone that would like travel for work and like schmooze and be paid to schmooze. Like there's nothing better than that. And the first time I ever realized that I was on the right path, I remember it was day one of the show and we're on the trade show floor. And I remember seeing on the brochure, there was Canopy and there was Tilray and all these big LPs that were from Canada. None of them were there. I was like, but they're all sponsoring this thing, but none of them were there. And I remember we're sitting in one of the conferences and it was and the government of Germany had gone public with the first ever, this is our RFP for medical cannabis. And we're going to be pulling all the weed from Canada. And this is going to turn into the biggest ever like And then it clicked to me. I was like, that's why they're not here. They knew about this.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is, and from literally from that day of us being at the right place at the right time, because we pivoted in the moment of trying to sell consulting services to domestic people in Germany to being like, oh, we're going to help write this RFP because a Canadian LP needed a German partner.
Yeah.
Here we are in Germany with all these fucking German partners who either like they have money, they have a facility,
just waiting.
And they're like, what do you guys do? And at that time we had rebranded to CCI, which is Cannabis Compliance Inc. And I was like, oh, we're the largest one-stop cannabis licensing authority in the world. There was nobody else.
Yeah.
Right? So we're number one. There was David Hyde.
Yeah.
George who ran Pipe Dreams. And there was like some of these others. There was a guy, Nick, who ran this place called C3 out of like California, but there was no Deloitte of this space. And we wore it well. And I remember coming back and we had all these opportunities. And so from 2016 to 2019, I was a founding member of Cannabis Compliance Inc., which scaled to 115 employees. And then at the end of 2019, I think it was September, October, I get a call from Brian, and he's like, he gave me the same speech I gave my godfather. He's like, I'm exhausted. He's like, I can't do it anymore. He was also a very big introvert. He was based out of Victoria. He loved like buying houses and flipping them. And here I was like dragging him to every trade show. And I'm like, we need a company party here. And, we need a company retreat to build morale. And I took a hold of that company again with people that were way smarter than me. But I had the liberty to, I built a sales team from zero to, MJ Biz of 2018. We rented the entire floor at the Cosmopolitan for the sales team. We had a 20 by 20 booth in the center of the trade show. And I think the sales team wrote $1.3 million of business at the actual show.
Just at the show. Wow.
At the show.
Yeah.
And some of these guys like Brendan Kerr and Riley Wood and Andrew Ross, like they were running huge brands now. Like Riley runs Rose Life Science. Brendan runs Viola and Avicanna. Andrew runs Ministry of Sativa and half of the stuff with Joycraft. Yeah. And it was like, here I was with these guys, where it was like, we were selling picks and shovels during the gold rush at the base of the mountain and like selling the duct tape if someone else sold the boat with the hole. Like that was, we were anything and everything to everyone. And like the evolution of that company from originally where we just wanted to write applications to, I was like, well, for writing these applications, why are we not project managing the build out of these applications? And the management team was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, this is something that I learned from my security days where if we were doing security at a prison or a cannabis facility, we were working under a general contractor. Like we weren't, and we had trades and I knew the electrical guy, I knew the plumbing guy. I was like, we're writing these applications that come with floor plans, equipment specs, HVAC specs. I was
the plan is already there.
I was like, let's tender this thing out. And then they didn't even understand what I was talking about. I was like, look, I will take care of getting everybody. I'll get 5 GCs. I'll get 5 electricals. And then we'll just offer this as a sample to our clients who are paying at the time. To get a cultivation license written by CCI was $250,000. Like, and we sat there and we were like, bring your checkbooks because we're off the record guaranteeing license approval. Mm-hmm. We were so,
and you guys were getting everything because I remember everything. In my
100%
early days,
success rate. 100%.
Couple things that. So one, you're talking about Andrew Ross and the other individuals that have gone on to do things, and I remember this.
Eric Van Dam.
Like God, right? So you're bringing up so many names from the early days now. It's just awesome. That's why I really wanted to be able to connect. I remember this. So I joined John Prentice. So I don't know if I told you this story. I saw John I was an MMAR grower at the time. I was in real estate and I was flipping and doing a bunch of different stuff. And I saw John Prentice on BNN, right? And he's talking about tracing cannabis. He's going to track cannabis. And I'm like, listen to this fucking guy, right? Like, okay, sounds interesting though. So realize we have a mutual connect. I reach out to him on Facebook, just like, hey bud, would love to come and have coffee with you. He's like, come on up. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I go up, they're in a swing space. I didn't know what was going on at the time. They weren't in the swing space. They're at 30 Commercial. And I go in, nice space. I mean, it's, not the most to-do place of Toronto. And I don't care, right? So I go in, we meet with them. Awesome guy. We share stories. I was supposed to be there like half an hour. I think Sharissa had marked off 30 minutes, right? And we were like 3 hours. And we were just talking about everything. And basically he's like, so what do you want to do? I go, what do you mean what do I want to do? He goes, well, like, what do you want to do here? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So anyways, which led to more conversations. We really need to find you. He takes me around, introduces me to everyone in the building. At the time it was like 15 people. It wasn't that many. And I remember leaving going, I just really like his vibe. You know, John, right?
Yeah.
And super smart guy. And I'm just like, I just like his vibe. I like everyone else's vibe. So we land on, you'll come in with your cultivation experience and things that you've done previously with building media companies and building educational systems. And you'll be my director of training and education. I'm like, okay, let's see how it goes. But one of the things that I noticed, early on was how connected John was. But not only that, he said to me, we were building out the big space at the Revival, and we had a swing space at the time. And we were outside, probably blasting a blunt. If you know where to find John, is probably outside blasting a blunt. And he goes, listen, Tom, he goes, the future for you is really anything. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And John's younger than me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, right now where you are in the industry, you'll have any opportunity you ever want. Your ground level, you're starting early. Ample and the opportunity with Ample will open any door in this industry for you. I'm like, at first I'm like, oh, fuck, I just came on here, man. What are you trying to get rid of me already? Like, what, is there no future here at Ample? Like, what's going on? So, you talk about going to 115 employees. It was similar. Ample, I mean, I was employee 17, November 17th, 2017, I joined, number 17 employee. And we went to 136 employees in 6 months.
Yeah.
And they all needed, and that was the one thing at the time that set Ample apart from any competitor in the space. And you know this, everyone received training on not only the software, but how you cultivate, what our operators need to do. John built me a training center. I don't know if you ever saw it, if you're ever in the office at Ample, he built that for me. He's like, this is your space. What do you want? Anything you want, we'll get it for you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't realize the velocity we were going to have and need. And clients coming in, we talk about Delshen and 48 North, and we had Shoppers Drug Mart. I mean, teams of 30 were coming in and we were training them on the software. And even they didn't know, they didn't know SOPs. They didn't know the regulations. Their QA people came from pharma. And I'm like, this fucking industry's doomed. Like, what are we doing? Like, there's so many people that don't know anything about even anything, right?
Yeah.
But I just love that it's created so many relationships and opened so many doors. I can call, every name you're mentioning, I'm like, I know them. I text them. I can call John if I need advice. And that's what I loved about it is, it was the same when I was in advertising. So you talk about advertising and, in media, and we put these creative gods on these pedestals. And when I started the media company, it was really to bridge the gap between education and industry, because students were struggling. They come out with a creative portfolio. There was certain means, but the vast majority of everything happened in the US. And I'm like, okay, we need to change this. So I created AdBuzz to be able to open doors for students trying to get in the industry. And really, that's what we've been able to do here. In the early days of being connected with the right people, no one ever wants to reach out. They're struggling. They want to find a job in the cannabis industry. Have you tried reaching out? Did you, like, most of these people are just true, cool humans at the end of the day, right? Reach out to them, send them. Oh, I can't get them. I tried them on LinkedIn. I said, well, you're trying them on LinkedIn. Like, everyone's fucking trying to get people's attention on LinkedIn. Send them a handwritten note. Find their mobile and send them a message. Right?
What are you willing to do? Like, that's the follow-up.
Go the extra mile.
Like, these trade shows are great. Everyone is on the the adrenaline and the momentum of the show. But I always tell people, like, 100 business cards ain't worth shit if you're not following up, right? You
got to follow up.
And play that numbers game. Like, when people say, if I'm at a trade show, like, why am I here? I'm like, here for my clients. And then to meet 100 people, to send, 50 emails, to try and set up 10 calls, to talk with 3 people, to sign 1 new client. Like, that's what you have to do. It's like,
that's it.
Like,
and it's the same, Mike, it's the same across every industry, right? And I know you know this. Like, they used to say in real estate when I started, 20 plus years ago, it was, you want to sell 1 house, you've got to talk to 100 people. It's just the way it works, right? So, and it's the same. You've been in sales long enough to understand that. So CCI happens. I think I interrupted you. Brian had called. He said, I'm burnt out. He was pulling the what Mike does to
my godfather,
or godfather.
And then then he's like, I'm actively going to start shopping the company around, and I wanted you to be one of the first people that knew about it. And then he started coaching me about like what I should be doing next. And I had to face the reality that I was like most likely not going to be going with the sale, because he was, anyways, long story short, it was Deloitte out of all the companies that went and purchased CCI. And
which was smart on Deloitte's part.
Oh, the book of
they wanted
business
in the space for a while.
Yeah. And we had run, we were going side by side on a bunch of different things. And then, it was like October, November, and we had another chat, and Brian was like, if you go to Deloitte, you'll get an exit packet, but you have to stay there for 3 years. And if you leave on 2 year, 11 month and 29 days, it's like, you don't get anything. He's like, if you go your own way, you'll get an exit package. It's, you can't even see it. He's like, but you wanted to sign an non-compete. You can do whatever you want. And he was like, and he was like, someone's going to scoop you up. You'll be head of sales, national sales director for whatever LP you want, and off you go. And I remember so I came to the realization, and again, because history repeats itself, it was my then wife who was like MJ Biz is coming up. It was like a month ago before MJ Biz. She was like, go to MJ Biz and see who you can talk to. And then she was like, try like doing something maybe like for yourself. And I was like, interesting. And then what happened was the timing of MJ Biz coming up, I had got a call. So anyways, I decided to go off on my own at MJ Biz, and I had a project to take me to MJ Biz to do that, which was Boston Beer. So who owns Sam Adams, who also owns Teapot now. So I was right. I had spent 2 years in California on behalf of CCI, helping California scale in 2018 and 2019. I met a shitload of different companies. One of the companies that I met was this nano infusion company. And they had come to know Boston Beer, who was going to use their technology for a drink. Anyways, I had a conversation with Boston Beer at the beginning of November, and they're like, can you help us find a partner in Canada and put the entire deal together where we will be able to set up a beverage line in their facility? And it was like a week after my then wife was like, go off on your own, that here was this project. And I was like, okay, I want this. And they were like, okay. And it was, again, so undervalued. I think I was like, I want $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And here's the plan. We're going to go to Vegas, and I'm going to set up meetings at Vegas. I'm going to cattle call all these LPs into a penthouse room at a hotel. And they're like, okay. I was like, and that's what I want. And they're like, okay, cool, no problem. So we'll meet you at MJ Biz. And I was like, okay. So then what happened was, I was like, okay, if I'm doing this, then I saw a sign. So then I took the entire month of November and I set up maybe like 100 meetings at MJ Biz. And at that time, the sale of CCI was so hot. People wanted to know how much money I made from the sale and why I wasn't working for Lloyd and what am I doing now?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm here to listen to what projects you have on the go and how, what do you need to make more money? And again, it was my first ever thing to like talk to 100 people. And then I went home from that and ran the Boston Beer project for like 6 months. And then I was like, I looked at all these notes that I had from, potential client A who I want a multi-state licensing deal and I need to sell more bulk and I need a packaging supplier. And I was like, okay, I checked 2 of those boxes. Then I saw someone else. I was like, oh, I checked every single one of their box. Well, here's how I think I can do it for them I just rinse and repeat this Boston Beer process, which is I want this a month and I'm going to do all these in it. So and then it just took off. I started doing private consulting. The Boston Beer project went off unbelievable. I partnered them with Entourage and Peak Processing, and they launched Teapot, which was it's a great success.
Very successful.
Only besides like whatever the other Budweiser and Tilray. But yeah, it's a huge beverage company that has a beverage, and they'll be poised when the state goes federal. But that was my next like iteration, and this is my purpose today. 5 years, almost 5 years later, is this wall, and I did this analogy or metaphor before. It's like this is like my connection wall. I have 5 fingers in every one of these brands that's on that wall, and now is like the most joy I have in my life, which is, I have a roster of clients that I rotate from anywhere from 3 months to, I have 2 guys I've worked with for over a year and a half, and everything is results driven. It's like, I want to make more money in this. This is what they say to me. And I guarantee them 100% success rate, or I keep going until I get there.
Yeah.
And like, I turn the meter off if I'm unsuccessful or that box goes unchecked. So your relationships and your reputation and your execution are everything, right?
Yeah.
What have you done? Who have you done it with? And what do they say about working with you? That's why like I consider like this cannabis space as a microcosm of life, right?
Yeah. It is 100%.
You know, you're only as good as what you've done with other people, and surround yourself with these successful people, and they'll show you the way. And, you know,
but I think the difference is though, because, you know, and I'll call them the early days individuals that were involved in the industry, is we've made a lot of connections, right? But what carries that forward and the ability to, you know, have a wall like you have behind is really comes down to your personality and your ethics, right? And your moral compass, which is you're not going to screw anyone over. You're not going to take money just to take money. We've said this, you've told me this before when we've met, is you're not going to take a project on just so that you can get this and this and this, as you were saying, right? It is, can I find success for this opportunity, this potential partner, right? And I think that's what's very important and missing with so many, Mike.
It's also because, like, from my experience, my perspective, like, this life hasn't demanded what the cannabis space demands. You know what I mean? Like, it's another metaphor. It's like load-in is great into a retail store, but it's sell-through that counts. Like, who cares if you get $100,000 PO from the OCS, if you have an RTV for $90,000 at the end of like 4 or 5 months? Like, it looks great on paper, but like it's sell-through. It's the dollars that count at the end. It's, you know, it's like I live off of my to-do list, and I live off of goals that I can physically put a check mark beside, not like look at. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
goals are important. And so many are forgetting that you need to set goals, right? Even if you're doing your own thing, you got to be setting your goals. You can't just hypothetically hope that something's going to happen if that goal isn't there, right? But help us with understanding, because you connect and broker, I'll call it broker because it's Canna broker, but you broker deals and help, really, you're connecting dots and you're running projects, but you do it within Canada, but you also straddle the border. You've done that for quite some time. What are you seeing as, I mean, there's obviously opportunity within the US, especially if we look at, you know, federal legalization. Where are the certain complexities though right now and the opportunities that you're seeing in the future? Because Canada really just looks at the US right now, unless they're trying to do business in some way, shape or form with the US, as, oh, fuck, I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole. That's just a mess. Yeah. But what are the challenges and opportunities right now with the US?
That it's all East Coast of the US.
Okay.
It's like California, I was talking to a very big producer yesterday, and they're selling pounds for $900 of like really quality stuff. And it's like on the East Coast, it's $3,000, $4,000, sometimes $5,000 a pound.
Why?
And well, I mean, it's also scarcity on the East Coast.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
Demand on the East Coast. Ohio went legal yesterday at their first recreational sales. Michigan just topped California in terms of top market.
Michigan's been on fire.
But 70% of their population is above the age of 21.
Right.
So they all have guns, drink, and smoke.
Right.
That's lightning in a bottle, right? Like,
the
problem with California is that they took a 25, 30-year-old medical model and branched it off into recreational taxable cannabis, which really put a weird purgatory in, you know, for all these legacy guys.
It shackled the industry, right? You can't move in shackles.
Right. And then, but like, look at Oregon coming back with their cost per pound, and Colorado is slowly starting to come up. So I would say, like, it's definitely weighing towards the East Coast. You know, New York's about to pop off, and New Jersey's popping off, and, you know, Massachusetts has gone through a full rebuild. They've gotten their stuff back online in a good way. And then you have Florida, which is the greatest mind fuck of my life. Like, you go to Florida for the weather, not the weed. Like, you know, 35, 40 million people that I can't walk into a dispensary is mind boggling. But everything is vertically integrated from every major MSO that's based out of Florida. And then I read a story this morning where there's some billionaire who put up $12 million to fight that. It's on the ballot in November for rec, and it will not pass. 0%. It has to get like 65 or 60% approval, which is not going to happen. And that's the way they want it. So when someone talks to me about like federal legalization in states, I just say Florida, because you'll never get there without Florida.
Right. So in your opinion, how far out is this going to be?
No
Are they
timeline.
going to-
I
No
thought we were
timeline.
really close, like the last 2 years, when
That's what I thought.
all
yeah.
these things were happening, and there were like all these like convictions that were being overturned, and then Joe Biden went to shit, because he was the one that's brought it up, I guess, for the midterm primaries.
Yeah, exactly. And I see so much getting pinned to, opportunities with Harris. Oh, she was pro cannabis, and I'm like it's just a thing.
They had
It's
their
just a thing.
whiteboards too. They had their whiteboards.
Exactly.
And they're like, all right, we're going to add a little bit of cannabis, a little bit of gun
How do we get this
control,
demographic? Cannabis. Yeah, we can get them. Yeah.
Listen, like, I don't know what it said. Like Elon Musk or someone of them said, we're like 5 to 10 years away from everything being controlled, like in terms of what we see, what we do. So yeah, it's a sad fact that, they talk about being woke, but no one is actually woke. And,
right.
I like to call it awareness. Like I have, again, look for signs. If you don't knock on the door and never get answered, if you don't knock on 100 doors, one doesn't get answered. And like all this shit that successful people do, or at least the majority that I've met in my life, it's like they work themselves. They, like I have a routine I don't wish on anybody, but that's what I need to do. And it's full circle, but I've said this story this morning about John Prentice. We were at Can Expo in March, waxing poetical, smoking a joint, and talking about like this dream that we have. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, there's ups and downs. But again, here we are on a Tuesday at a weed trade show with our friends, smoking, talking about, this. And to do that, like I have to get up in the morning and thank God and pray and read, then get to the gym and then meditate. And then it's only 9 o'clock in the morning. But like, that's what I get to, and I didn't have this plan, but that's what I get to get my token to put in the slot machine that I know I pulled the lever. And here I am on August 7th on a Wednesday doing this podcast, right? So it's like awareness here in the moment. We're so busy about, and I'm not a huge victim of that too. That's, the voices in your ear, I got to worry about this, or this is coming fast. Right. But then you're not here.
That's right. 100%.
You're off somewhere else. And then you miss the moment, or you miss the phone call.
And you wrote me a little bit about it because of my ample days. I was traveling so much and, all over the place in various facilities. And you're like, I love to travel. Where do you want to go? And I'm like, I don't like traveling anymore, man. I got PTSD. Like, don't forget, I also commuted 4 hours, 5 hours a day just to get to the Ample offices, right? Wes still, he's like, crazy fucking guy. He still shakes his head. Wes, I think you have a question or something to add with Mike.
It's probably a little trailed now just because it was back when we were talking about the becoming federally legal in the United States. But I was wondering, from your opinion, Mike, do you think it's going to be, when it finally does, that tipping point, do you think it'll be more so from pressure from, again, all these individual states have legalized and therefore the government really has no choice at that point? Or do you think it might come more from external pressure from other countries around them? All, Canada's done it and now we're seeing a lot more countries legalize. Do you think that tipping point might come more from internal pressure or international pressure?
I think it comes from internal. I think it has everything to do with domestic in the States. And I think we have to wait till there's a president that actually like puts it on the ballot and listens to these producers that, much like we are here, like the taxing is insanity. It's not, it's trying to feed off of the revenue coming into space, not grow a new industry. And then it's like, I always wonder, I'm like, well, do you consider the .com like as a new industry or like technology advancement? Like we're living as if we were back in Prohibition when like Anheuser and Budweiser and Coors and all like rushed to the store. Like, could you imagine opening a 7-Eleven where the beverage industry didn't exist and all of a sudden it exists and you have like Sprite and Coke and Fanta, but like all at once, right? So naturally the government is sitting there, they're like, they don't give a shit. They're just like, it's money that's there. It's like taking a job for just taking the money. They created this industry to take the money, not to foster and grow it. I can't tell you how many states in the US have been faltered by like social equity because they saw that different states saw that as a way for cash grab and for, we're going to go with social equity first and, really give back to, people that are less fortunate and have them like grow up. Well, then what did you have? You had every like powerful rich guy going and attaching himself to a criminal and saying, okay, you're going to file this application for a cannabis license.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're very much ass backwards, but again, it's like, why should it be easy? Why should it be that everybody makes money? Wouldn't that mean that everybody was here? Because again, like bankruptcies are terrible. People losing their jobs is absolutely terrible. Closures are terrible. CCAAs are terrible. But again, it's like it creates opportunity for the companies that are stable, that do, do everything right, to flourish and to grow. But again, that's also just a backhand slap to the government that created all these parameters that made it way more difficult. Half of these companies, they're dealing with CCAA because they haven't paid the CRA. And they're like, well, we had to pay our employees and we have to buy this and we have to buy that. So it's victim of circumstance.
There's so many factors to take into consideration when you're trying to understand it. I do have a question just as you were talking about that. So OCS has recently announced that they're going to start whittling back on the amount of SKUs that they carry. With your experience, where do you see that impacting the brands, parent companies the most?
Yeah, so it's every category that's saturated. And I had a client that was just on the phone before who's like, we're getting out of vapes, we're getting out of infused pre-rolls, we're sticking to flour. He's like, we're getting out of milk too. Our milk is getting crushed as well. So it's like everybody rushed as soon as, and you had Adam, I think it was Adam, right? From Decibel on
Adam Coates.
the other day. Yeah, Adam Coates. Who like they started the path forward for infused joints and general admission. And then everybody copied them.
Everyone followed.
Now there's it's 800 infused pre-rolls on the OCS.
So many.
So I think vapes are going to fall, are going to be a victim, infused pre-rolls. And then maybe even like, I wouldn't say budget value flour can always last. I think we have a lack of really good flour in this country. Like it's
it's funny. I'm glad you brought it up because it is true. We're so close to it. We know who we like and love and where that premium category flour is. And I don't even want to classify it as that because I see some good quality product flour being sold at, I won't say budget, but it's mid-level, mid-tier. But it's just, again, it's situational, right? And we're in this weird space right now where, there's only a certain amount of marketing and promotion you can do to be able to, reach your consumer. We can't say there's no opportunity because that's complete bullshit. I mean, we're proof that we've created mediums to be able to advertise on, or promote on. But I think that in looking at these, like, 'cause I immediately think, like Canna Biotech, and there was some Nico and the crew over there, they got a little bit of flack about, they've got so many SKUs in market. Why not just stick to the 20 that are performing? Right? Yeah. And I think that there's a mix of both. And I see the point, but part of it is if you're not across the categories, you don't have brand recognition. And I may be a vape consumer and I'm loyal to this brand, but I also like this flower over here. But I really love that brand. They just happen to have one here. So I'm getting that category recognition across. But what do you see happening? I know they're just going to go, hey, these aren't performing. We're not gonna play in this category anymore. But with a Canna Biotech, for instance, where do you see opportunity, but also disadvantage when it comes to distribution, like OCS saying, hey, we're going to start limiting the amount of GLs that we have?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're speaking, like, you want to speak specifically about Canna?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I love Nico and Zohar, and I even have a funny story about him. But yeah, I met them in 2017 when they first were getting started. And they're so big in Quebec. Right. And that's one of the reasons that they hired Nick Van Dam from Oxley, is to grow their Ontario market share. So, and I think they are scaling back in terms of some of their SKUs. They also just released some new flour, and obviously everybody's been talking about the trifecta, of which I still have yet to sample. I want to make sure I have like a night. But yeah, I mean, like I think that they pivot. I think that they realize, they have to look at bottom line and see where they are strong. But again, it's so ridiculous, the parallels that exist in this country. Like Quebec is 8 or 9 or even 10 million people, and we have 96 stores. Right. I have to drive 20 something minutes to get legal cannabis from where I live. Yeah. Ontario, I can obviously, everyone knows, spit and hit 10 from no matter where you are in the GTA or surrounding area. And you can't, and if you think you can't do anything in Canada, you really can't do shit in Quebec. Like if you speak about weed, like you'll get a ticket mailed to you. So it's like this parallel of trying
you're bringing
to
up a
balance.
really good point. Yeah. As you're answering that, I'm thinking through this, with the little points that you're adding, and I'm thinking, like, OCS is one factor, and they, a lot have said this, if you're not in Ontario, you're nowhere. And I still say that's bullshit, but regardless, so now you've got, let's say you do have that category spread. Some are performing well in, I don't know, New Brunswick. Some are performing well in BC. Certain ones perform well in Quebec and then Ontario. That's not easy. That's got to be very tough, right? Because you still need to produce the products in those categories.
You're a mini MSO.
Right.
Like you're a guy, you're a company in Cali that has operations in Massachusetts, and this is the packaging here, and you can't do that. You have to have an identity crisis every single morning. Well, how come this sells in Quebec but won't fucking move in Ontario? So then, it's crazy to try.
And that's where,
like, how do you
many outside Canada think, oh, well, you're federal, you've got it easy. Especially when you talk to, we've got individuals that we're with in the US, and they're like, oh, it's Canada, so much easier. You probably, I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? Are you out of your mind? Like, box sizing requirements, G10 requirements, GS1 like, the list goes on. And then, God forbid, performance in a category, because then your listing gets dropped. Yeah. Like, come on. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's harder. I don't know. But I look at, those individuals. For instance, you brought up Adam. Adam last week, he said, we haven't got it all figured out. We've got a lot of different products in different categories because we're trying to test as well. We need data to truly understand, and their own data, right? Because we're doing this big roll up to data now, right? This is coming out last week and the week before. But you need those data points to understand what is performing, what's not performing. He's like, a vape, we can get a vape ready in a couple weeks. Like, no problem. This isn't performing. They want a different flavor. They want to do this. We can do that in a couple weeks. It takes longer, obviously, to get it to market. But in flower, God, flower's performing well. Everyone wants something switched. They want a new cultivar, a strain, a flavonoid, whatever it might be. We're a year, right? So taking all of these, KPIs and trying to understand what's performing well, what's not, what's got good margin, what doesn't have good margin, distribution's easier here, it's not there. The advice that anyone that comes to me, they're like, I want to get in the cannabis industry, I go, don't. Just don't.
But a huge disservice I think a lot of these LPs are doing is like, they don't, like, you can't do market research in Canada. Like we're what is it? We're not even 7 years old from a rec perspective. Yeah. Like, I'm going to go to
infants.
Like I'm going to go to I'm going to go to Lloyd Minister and look at a dispensary and find out why this decibel pre-roll sells more than Intimate. Like, and where I'm going with this is the amount of market knowledge that I have gotten from going. Look, I was in Vegas last week at a Champs trade show where it was cannabis. I go to Hall of Flowers. I go to Benzinga in Miami. Like, I'm out in the field where it's markets that are way more developed than us. And why wouldn't I go to California where this is the packaging for the resin. Yeah, we can't do this in Canada yet, but what can we pull from this or from what's in the jar? And I'll give a great shout out to Mario and the team over at Motif, because last March, I was at Hall of Flowers in Ventura, California I drag my clients. They don't get a choice. They come with me wherever I go. And here was Nick White and 4 or 5 salespeople from Motif who were there to understand what the fuck are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Look at new products, do store dispensaries. And and I was like, yes. What did it cost you to come here? Well, whatever you're going back with is going to be so beneficial.
That's a great fucking point, man. Yeah. That's a really good point.
I never understood that. I would tell people, go to these trade shows in the States, understand where we will be. You have to, this is a market, California is 30 years older than us. So if you want to know where you're going, go where people have been.
Well, you're bringing up a point that is so crucially important. So, and I'm just connecting the dots right now. This is one of the reasons I love you so much is, if I think through the guests that we've had, I don't know what episode we're on, Wes. 24. 5. 24. Okay, 24. So it says right up here on the left. So all of the guests that we have had that have had success, they have spent time in the trenches in one way, shape, or form in the US. Think
or Morocco.
Crosbie,
look at Alex.
Well,
right.
Alex, yeah, exactly. They're well traveled. They understand the markets that are happening. I think to Chris Crosbie. I think to a number of different individuals. But Chris spent so much time in Cali.
Yeah.
Alex,
he was
Morocco,
the first
Thailand,
guy with cookies. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and to understand the forecast and future of where we will be, everyone thinks, oh, well, they're not federal, they're not this. What harm is it, assuming you can travel to the US, what harm is it in going to a Champs trade show? What harm is it going to Hall of Flowers down there?
And if you make yourself a goal
to have
list,
a good time, yeah.
And if you make yourself a goal list and you're like, I need to meet 10 people, find one new client, get 20 leads, then you know what your ROI is. But if you're like, I'm going to take a shot in the dark, I'm going to fucking go to here, I'm like, then they say failure to plan is planning to fail. Like,
yes,
that's why I tell like people who travel with me, and I have a good little group now, like they know I bring my shit with me. I bring my routine with me. I know the clothes I'm wearing at the show before I even get there. Yeah. Like, you just take yourself out of the equation. And then again, like why I go to the States and I do these market research and I drive my clients with me, whether they sell in the States or not, is because I got news for you. When you got a country with 400 and something million people that finally get the green light, that have been sitting there waiting like rabid dogs. Yeah. You know where they're coming to steal the lunch from?
Oh, they're ready to eat.
Yeah. You don't think they sit there and they read all those press releases about, oh, Aurora shipped $500,000 to Israel. And they're like, fuck, we can't do that. And they're
they've got a hit list.
Yeah, for sure. So like, it's naive to think that, we're better than anyone. Again, we've been given a gift, right? Yeah. Of this federal legalization to be, I pound my chest when I'm in the States and I'm from Canada and I done this and I've done that. But it's you got to like be there with gratitude, because again, like if you're not at that trade show, there's a few things. One, someone else is, right?
Right.
And if you're not there, like someone else, those eyes are talking to someone else. So again, going back to what we talked about putting yourself in the successful circle and follow successful people. And it's, again, especially in this space, it's so easy to see what people have done. Like John Prentice, where everybody's great friends with him. Like first time I ever met him, I think it was like the beginning of 2017. We had just launched CCI and we had a sit down like, because he was Apple and he was in applications and we were starting applications. That was the first time that we broke bread, and we've been friends ever since. But like, look at the success of that guy. Like he might dumb it down, but again, creates a software company from nothing that's going to track weeds, builds it up, sells it, buys this other facility, going into contract manufacturing. It's evolution, right? Like evolution. If you know John, he wants to be living in the Bahamas in 2 years and operating joint craft
flying his own plane. Back and forth. Exactly.
Like, I spent a large portion of my earlier life being in the wrong circles, and it goes back to that. The more you succeed, the more you fail.
Amen to that.
I
hear you.
And it was and it was a terrible place to be. Now that I've tasted, the water, the horse drink the water. And again, I consider myself at the best point of my life today. And arguably the last 3 years of my life has been some of the hardest with COVID, being self-employed. I've gone through a divorce. I have 2 children. I'm not saying that my problems are any bigger or smaller than anyone else, but again, my perspective. I tell people I live off of what I read and what I hear. And someone said this to me, this is your movie. Right. And you cast the roles. And you either want someone having a bit part or you want someone having a big part. And whoever plays those big roles, boy, you're making them the star of the show. So it's like the energy that's so in the space. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, especially with what you're doing, I mean, I could just imagine how much COVID would have rocked that world. Like it's, you're traveling, you're meeting with people, and then all of a sudden you got to go Zoom, and you're an in-person guy. You want to be as in-person as possible. You were kind enough, you're hosting this event, around Kind and everything. We wanted to be able to join for a dinner. And I'm like, fuck, Wes, how can we do it? And he's like, we just couldn't make it work. And I'm like, I need to be there. Right? Because this
October
is my
2nd, boys. October 2nd. That's the next one.
There we go.
October 2nd. I think it's Wednesday.
Let's do it.
We'll make it work. I'm gonna tell my wife now.
Yeah, like that. And that's the thing. Like I do those dinners where whatever trade show I go, not to go and have a good meal, but again, to be surrounded by these people,
good people. It's just good people. And you don't even frame it as, look, there's business opportunity. Fuck the business opportunity. That'll come. Form relationships, get to know individuals. These are long-lasting friendships, right?
Yeah.
They're ones that, these are the individuals when we were coming into industry that we wanted to be able to work with. And now you have access to them and you go, nah, I don't do any of that.
Yeah. willingness, right? Willingness. It doesn't matter if it's a dinner, the gym, reading a book, or
you got to show up.
For a client.
I say it all the time.
You got to show
all
up
the time. That the gym is the same thing. Like my son's 16 years old. He knows I'm in pain. He's like, how do you get to the gym? Not every morning, but as many mornings. I'm like, I show up and let the rest happen, man. I'm not 25 anymore doing 2-hour workouts, but if I can get there for 20 minutes, I've at least checked the box for the day.
Your worst day in the gym is better than your best day of not going.
That's right. 100%. Mike, I'd be remiss without at least asking you, because I know we went through some technical
this is great.
changes in the beginning. So you have some things that talking points at least, and Wes reminded you, goes, this is a fucking unscripted show, bud. But anyways, I want to make sure that we hit some of the things, because we could talk for fucking hours.
No, this was good. I mean, we went over a lot of stuff. I think maybe,
and I'm not saying we're done. I'm not saying we're done by any means.
I just want like I said before we started, I made a list of topics that I wanted to go over.
Yeah,
because I've also been hyper focused on this podcast, which is great. It was one of the few times I haven't smoked before a show. So, no, I compliment you guys. I love the format that you guys are doing. I love all the small stuff that you guys do, and I'm just commending you guys on the guests that you have. I'm such a good friend of Alex and Stuart from Canna from Stuart Farms, and obviously Adam, and you had Taylor on from Oceanic. That's another license that
Taylor's
CCI wrote.
Fantastic too.
Yeah,
awesome.
It was a year ago that I went to Newfoundland with my dad. I took him on a father-son trip. And it was the first time in 10 years that I've been in the space that he was in a cannabis facility, and we had him kitted up, and we got him like this picture of like 1,000 pounds on his shoulder. And
I think, so one of the things that we had loved, we've talked to so many individuals, but there was something about Taylor and Dylan and Oceanic that just was so warm and inviting, personalities, but the story, like, so what was that like when you were out there? Did you get to one of their stores?
Yeah, we were there for an entire week because a year ago, last year, same as this week, it was a festival called the George Street Festival, where they were the first cannabis company allowed to exhibit. No cannabis sales on the fairgrounds, but it was sort of a big thing. And even more symbolic was that my father, who I consider the greatest salesman I've ever known, made the majority of his livelihood out of Newfoundland. My father was a textile broker.
Okay, very cool.
I'm the Canna broker. He was the textile broker.
He was the textile broker, yeah.
So he used to bring all his bulk fabric in from the Orient into St. John's. And so him going back was unbelievable, because he knew all these places and everywhere we went. And she treated us like we were family. She called him dad, and they're so well connected to Giovannini's in them, much like Chris Crosby's family too. So both those families run the entire province.
The legends out on the East Coast is just crazy. Yeah. And you don't realize even the ones that have migrated to the West Coast, they have their hearts and roots from the East Coast.
Yeah,
nuts.
Just nuts. So it was an amazing week. It was so special. I was also suffering. Last year, I'd gone through about 6 months with 2 herniated discs in my neck. And I was borderline paralyzed, and I think I did like 9 shows in 6 months through the pain. And it was in Newfoundland that I finally got mobility back in my neck, and I was like, it's like
did it just happen, or how?
It happened. Like I woke up one morning and I was able to fully rotate my neck.
Wow.
I wasn't able to lift. I couldn't lift like higher than this. There were times I was in meetings and people were like, "Wow, you look really interested." I'm like, "No, I'm holding my neck up."
I'm not interested.
I'm not interested. I'm gonna collapse in a second.
I'm gonna die if I move my hands.
But I remember I had an MRI, and then they wanted to do neck surgery, and I was like,
that's some scary shit, man.
Yeah, and they're like, recovery is 6 months. I'm like, but I'm self-employed.
Yeah,
and then I met this physical therapy woman who cured me.
That's awesome.
Through hard work, but yeah,
I wish mine, because I've had back surgery, lower back, L5S1. And it's funny because you say you get an MRI. I had to fight tooth and nail to get an MRI.
I paid for it.
Originally, I should have. I didn't know back when I was getting mine done though, right? So they do X-ray. They're like, yeah, your back's fucked. They do a CAT scan. I go to Trillium Health Center in Mississauga, probably the best back surgery clinic there is. Dr. Duncan. Like, I still remember his fucking handshake. It was the lightest, softest, and because he doesn't want, he's seeing me, right? And he's like, I'm not gonna let this fucker have my hand, right? These tools are worth millions of dollars, right? And I'm like, come on over here with a Trump handshake, right? So, anyways, he's like, yeah, you know, he goes, you always have back pain. You're always gonna have back pain. He goes, I'm gonna get rid of the acute, onset. It's down your leg. We're gonna get rid of all of that. But these decompression clinics and some of the stuff that was available and some of the advancements in understanding the physiotherapy was not available at the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like years after I'd done something, like my back pain still exists. They do an MRI. They're like, yeah, we should have done an MRI first because you've got two other herniated discs, one above, one below. And I'm like, yeah, you're not touching my back again. No fucking way. I'm just, and it wasn't that the surgery was botched. Nothing wrong with that. It was the recovery. So my bones had ground together for so long, they were creating bone spurs that they had to drill off. And that created like a 26-week recovery. And I was still, and it was the same thing. I'm like, there's no way. Like, you want me to take time off? Self-employment? Are you out of your fucking mind? That's not going to happen. So I say that to say I'm so glad that you didn't have to have surgery because I know it. Usually in the neck they have to fuse, right? Yeah, and that is. Yeah,
I was C6 and 7, the top, right on the two top on the. Yeah,
that's a bad spot.
Yeah, and I was in Germany for the ICBC of 2023, and that was the worst. I remember trying to stand up at the show was absolutely insane.
Oh my god! Plus flight and everything getting over there.
Oh yeah, there's stories I have for another day from that show. All the stuff I was hooked up on just to stand up and walk the show. But I was in Berlin on behalf of Taylor. Oceanic was exhibiting there because I had structured their first export into Germany.
Got it.
So. To last thing about Taylor, not only did I wrote her application, but she employed me for a year from 2022 to 2023.
Cool. Yeah.
And I helped her scale. I brought in one of her best brands, which is Haze, which is a California brand.
Yeah.
We did a licensing deal there. But again, it was the same thing with Taylor. I wrote the application, we lost touch. And then she was like, I need to do all these things. What do you think you can help me with? And I was like, I'll check this.
Yeah.
And by the way, have you ever thought of this?
Right.
She was like, no, I never thought about that. I was like, okay, well, we have some stuff.
So at least Wes and I know now. Wes, we know the common denominator across because we hear they're carrying this brand. They're going to be launching this brand. They're doing this. And it's probably Mike. Mike's at the center of it somewhere in the middle of this. So Mike, what's the future of the Canadian industry? Or actually, no. Let me not do it that way. So if you've seen any of the episodes, what we've been doing is we get last week's guest to ask a question of the incoming guest, and then you get to ask one, which I expect will be spectacular. But Wes, do you have last week's question? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. So we had Adam Coates last week on from Decibel, and his question was, what do you know today that you wish you knew either back when you started in the industry or when you were younger in general? It doesn't have to be industry specific.
Yeah. I'm going to go with, in terms of like the industry, I would say, I wish I knew to trust more. I think the entire industry. What I mean by that is, like, when we first started, it was like black and white bags, black and white like containers, and like now, like the evolution of the goalposts being moved further and further away are really far away from where we started. So patience and trust from a regulatory perspective, from a commercial perspective, I think from the industry as a whole, patience, trust, and security. Like, if you plan to have this as a job for the rest of your life, then you don't need to hurry anything. So we will get to branding. We will get to, more stores in Quebec. We will get to all these other things that we're missing in this multi-state country that we call Canada from a cannabis perspective. So yeah, it's again, awareness and being here and trusting that if my mantra is be surrounded by smarter people, then I'm on a bus with smart people who are driving this industry. And like, that's the room where I'm the dumbest, right? They say be the dumbest guy in the room or find out the room.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Just I'm exactly where I need to be. So I would tell myself that, 11 years ago when I was knocking on the Hershey door, that, everything's going to play out. And it's, and that's what I would, and that's the exact same message I would give to myself if it was an industry. Is like, for every mistake that you make, it still leads you to where you get an opportunity to make a right decision. And then just domino those right decisions, right? Keep going to the gym, keep doing what you don't want to do. You do today what others won't. Tomorrow you have what others don't.
Right.
Like, doesn't matter if you can't go to the gym every day, Tom, but you do go to the gym. Like, you do what's best for you. And that's why I'm around you. Wes, same thing. I don't want you to be me and you don't want to be me. Like, be the best version of yourself. And then we'll get to episode 2024.
I love it.
Beautiful.
It's funny that you mentioned trust, because I remember those early days, and you started into it earlier with Tweed. But we all wanted to keep our card, even today, some people, some individuals, some companies, we want to keep our cards so close to our chest, thinking we have the most unique IP that anyone has ever seen, right? Got this cultivar. Never going to be copied. I'm going to put it in this very special bag. Oh boy. You're right. You're going to be a multi.
We are not original.
We're not.
That's a sad fact, right? Like,
yeah.
Again, like, history repeats itself. I come from my mother and my father, who come from their mother and their father. Like,
right.
We all get traced back to Adam and Eve, who fucked up from day one. I think it was a couple of hours and they ate the apples from the snake, right? So it's like
you didn't even make it a day.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. Like, and we wonder why, like, the sky is falling and all these things are going on. It's because it's like we just go back to our ancestors, and that's what, like, trying to be better is about. Is like not making the same mistakes that the younger version of myself make, that my father and my mother made, so that, like, my kids can have it easier, right? And then it's teaching and learning and listening.
It's learning. And that's right from the first conversation we ever had, Mike, was you said this, you go, because I'm like, what do you do? Like, I see you doing this. And honestly, I don't, like, I remember the days of CCI, with Ample, because we had a relationship then, but we were never close. We didn't get a chance to meet. And I'm so fucking shocked at that. Right. Like, when we met, I'm like, holy fuck, like, finally. Right. But one of the
Running
things that you had
side
said,
by side,
yeah, exactly. One of the things you said when I had asked, you're like, I just listen. I listen.
Yeah.
I look for opportunity to help. And as soon as you said just that, and Wes knew it, he's like, oh fuck, these guys are going to have a bromance in no time. They're going to, they're singing the same song. But he's like, you guys are a lot alike. And I said, yeah. And I think that that's important, but we're different. So we're alike, but we're different. But the biggest thing that I really noticed right away was, you listen. And it's one of the things I've had to pride or at least improve on is, those early days, Tom, was while you're speaking, I'm thinking, right? And now, especially, and I'll tell you, I've gotten a lot better over the years, but the podcast has certainly helped a lot more, right? So I need to be listening what you're saying so that I can ask the next question or look for that thread.
And not, what am I making for dinner? And I got to pick up Joni at 4:30 and, oh, wow, I have a hangnail on my right finger. Like, And that takes insane amount of work because, again, humans like to hear themselves talk.
Yeah.
And like, when I say, like, I brought myself down over the last 3 years, is because I've been practicing shut the fuck up. Like, speak when spoken to, speak when your words matter, and and listen, because the people that are talking, those are the ones you want to hear.
Yeah,
and
you're not in that circle for no reason. You open your ears, right? Yeah, you have 2 ears, one
trip
mouth.
And fall into this. Yeah, it's like shut your trap. Like you have 7 holes in your body. One of them is the biggest.
That's right.
That's
right.
So
now it's your turn. Oh, what do you say, Wes?
Before we get Mike to ask his question, I want to ask Mike to pick his favorite sticker on the wall behind him.
Fuck.
He's got to pick his favorite.
That the problem with my favorite stickers is that they're all on. I have the really good ones on my desk,
so you get to see them.
I mean, it's hard. I would say, like, my packaging stickers. These are, I don't even see that up there. I don't know if you can see that.
It'll come through. Yeah.
It's all so that's Laughing Gas. That's and it's funny. Joey Diaz. I don't know if you know the comedian.
Joey Diaz.
He owns a portion of that. That's a California cannabis company. And usually all the stickers from the States are the best ones.
What's your favorite US cannabis company or brand right now?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you Canada too, but I don't know if you're allowed to answer it.
Yeah. So this is a brand called Sluggers.
Okay.
And
Look at that packaging.
But what is in that? How the fuck did you get that across the border?
Yeah, well, I was a bad boy from Hall of Flowers in March, and I did a mailed at home. So inside this bag, which if you touch it, it looks like a baseball card, a little baseball
That's
card.
what I thought. Yeah.
And then inside is this tin. And then inside the tin, which are all gone, if you would believe it, and you'll look it up after, is the trifecta. So this company are the ones that did the first ever trifecta type of joint. So it's infused, coated with THCA, coated with diamonds. And then inside the actual pack, in the tin is a playing card. And the playing card is usually of the grower that they have the flower in the pack. So like cool. they've done collabs with Cookies, Fidel's, and inside. I can't get it. It's stuck there. But anyways, inside, so like the packaging, the novelty, everything is so good. I think you can see the joint in the top there. That's what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is a full pack. I won't. Well,
that's so appealing to kids. We shouldn't allow that in Canada.
Yeah. And then there's
this podcast is for 19 plus audiences, by the way.
And then there's another great brand called University, which is a riff on Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, okay.
So that's the packaging. That's the legal packaging for them in the States.
Skunk Farm. It reminds me of Skunk Farm here in Canada. They went with that GTA vibe. What are your favorites in Canada right now?
In Canada?
That's why I say favorites, because, individuals in certain positions can't play favorites with, one.
Well, the problem with me is I have so many friends that run facilities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I love John Prentice. I love Norton that runs Avant and Black Market. Like I've known him for 11 years.
Black
he was
Market
like
has some incredible products.
Yeah.
It's crazy good.
And then like I love Jay and Mendo and the stuff that he's putting out, and Chris Crosbie has amazing stuff that come in from the States. So there's that, but it's
Pure
few
Michigan?
and far between.
Pure Michigan, right?
Yeah, Pure Michigan.
Yeah.
And then there's the Green Joy guys who have a grape yogurt. Yeah. Which I wanted to say this before, but the thing is with Cali, you could buy shit weed or amazing weed, and there's a theme that runs. It tastes like it smells, whether it smells like shit or smells like fucking roses and bubblegum. When you smoke it, you're like, you taste what it smells. We have a huge lack of that in Canada. I don't know if the terpenes are so low or we don't
They're rushing it to market. We just had Rick on, right? Rick from High North was just on before you. So he's part of this episode.
Sick.
Yeah. See, we surprised him. But anyways, we were asking about that, because I've got, I've got a shirt that says, show me your terps, right? And I realized it's starting to lose a little bit of what it should. But he brought up a point where they're just not allowing it. They're not curing it long. They need to move it to market, distribution, supply, POs, everything needs to be fulfilled. They're not taking the time to coax it out. You would not, especially in the Humboldt region of California, rush a product to market. There's just no way. Oh, we got customers, they're waiting. Fine, fuck it. You're waiting, right?
But that's the difference. Like when we talked about I said this for the longest time too. The States want what we have, we want what the States have. The States want banking, they want their bills paid on time. They want, to file their taxes into their business.
Yeah.
And what do we want? We want amazing fucking packaging. We want fire fucking weed. We want fucking, events that are consumption outside, inside, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. And, in the States, they go B2B. There is they go B2B and they declare to the state whatever it is. They pay the taxes on the products that they sell. That's the difference of dealing with the boards. The boards are like, this is your time to apply for a new listing. And we're only going to buy what you apply 6 months later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like so ass backwards, instead of like putting a body in place where like they can go direct to store. You know what I mean? Like imagine properly sitting down with a buyer of a retail store where they're like, okay, here's your PO.
Yeah.
Okay. Ship me the weed in 2 weeks.
Could you imagine?
Sounds
what
good.
a difference. I do want to
Yeah.
add, have you tried, so when you're talking about, it says it's this cultivar or whatever it is, it tastes like this. The one that stands out the most, Wes, I still owe you part of the bag. Genevieve Newton sent us Daily Grape. If you've had a chance
Oh,
from
that's
Stuart
from
Farms,
Tanner.
the Daily
Yeah, so
Grape,
it's-
yeah, Tanner,
yeah,
yeah, Tanner.
so
Oh,
The Daily
my
Grape is
fucking
almost
God.
as good as the grape yogurt from Greenjoy. It's almost a tie.
Oh my God. Okay.
I would say the grape yogurt is better than the.
Really? Whoa,
yes.
Genevieve listens. You're going to get your ass in trouble.
No. I listen, and I love their.
But she's got some secret one she's working on. I don't even know if she told us. Did she, Wes? Was it something to do with strawberry maybe? Or because there's some bad strawberry with some, botanical terps and stuff sprayed on them. But, and Wes, he fucking hates that smell so much.
Me too.
And I do too, but it doesn't bother me as much. But the fake smells, I hate that. I'm not into that. And certain things have a certain place, right? And that's okay. For me, it's not my jive. But the Daily Grape was the closest so far. So now I got to go and find the Greenjoy.
Yeah.
It was the closest grape to every taste, smell.
Yeah. You're like, I'm
everything
smoking
was there.
grape bubble gum.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she calls it like
delicious.
Genevieve says it's my queen. She's a winner. Stick with it. And Tanner's awesome. Tanner's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But
we shouldn't be in a country the size of California talking about 4 producers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that's the thing. We should be saying, oh, there's too many to count, but
right. Yeah, exactly. Which you would say in California is like, I don't know, like give me your top
you can
10.
go and
Top
you can
10.
go and like in West Hollywood and pick what they call shit, and it's our good stuff.
Yeah. We've got a long ways to travel. Like you say, 7 years in. For you, it's been a lot longer, 11 years now. But man, I just think of the future and the opportunities and what's coming. So on that note, what, Mr. Elkin, is your question for next week's guest? And we don't tell you who it is.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. The catch is.
Yeah. And it's, you want it to be industry.
Doesn't have to be industry at all.
Doesn't know.
Yeah. I'd like to make it industry. Who is the one person that you would like to smoke a joint with, both living, dead, or not born yet?
Amazing. Okay. We can make that work.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Mike, we could spend the whole fucking day together, and we will in person.
Yes.
But I mean, even here on the podcast, we could talk forever. So much knowledge, information, but you're just a genuine cool dude. And that's what we
appreciate that, guys.
But we thank you
great.
so much for joining Legacies. We know how busy you are. We managed to make it work finally. But you're welcome back anytime we can get you in. And we're looking forward to October 2nd. See, it's locked in, baby. I already have it in my head.
Invite will be going out soon.
Love it. Well, thanks, man.
Awesome.
We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
boys.
Continued success.
Appreciate you. You too, guys.
Great
Continue on to episode 2024.
Love it.
Amazing.
Have a great one, guys.
Thank you, sir. Well, that was a fun episode. I knew it was going to be a fun episode.
Yeah, he's like your friggin' twin.
It's not just Mike, but I mean, we got Rick on. It's just, I just love where the conversations are going. I think we're growing into where we need to be. And obviously the support, we get so many messages, so many people reaching out. It's very encouraging. We thank you for those. Sometimes you never know, right? We're just putting stuff out there. And
I mean, on everything Mike's going through, I think it might be time for us to start considering, maybe starting to share some legacies of some U.S. brands. I don't know, because there's a lot of stories to tell. But
what do we call it? Legacies something else. I don't know. But, and that's the thing. Like Mike brought up a very good point, and it was just dawning on me while he was saying it. I'm like, so many of our guests that have had success have spent time not just at trade shows, but they've spent time in Cali. They've spent time. I mean, go back to even the conversation. We haven't had him on yet, but Ryan Lee, right? All the genetic work that he did down in Cali. They've medical framework since 96, 97, somewhere in there. Yeah. Anyways, just fun to get to talk to cool people. This is what we get to do, man. Cool people. You're muted, but it's cute, cool people.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly is all I said.
All right. Well, we need to wrap it up because I know we've got a long episode. We do apologize, but listen, Wes takes all the time to chapter them out, so you can jump through it, but we suggest you watch the whole thing. It's really good.
Yeah,
I think
it's going to be a good episode.
I could be biased.
Do Do you want to do one more reminder for everyone that Lake and Bake is coming up?
Lake and Bake is coming up August 17th. I forget the exact times, but tickets available. Obviously, if you haven't had them already, you may not get them. I don't even know where the numbers are now. But you can use code Legacies to get 25% off. Just visit the Lake and Bake website. I'm sure Wes will, as he does with everything, puts up a link to that. But also, and I encourage to check out the various guests and the brands and the sites that we mention. You'll learn a lot, right? High North Labs, they're doing a charity golf 420, Canna Golf Classics coming up. There's a tether event in Ottawa coming up. Pay attention if you can't find where the events are. StratCan, I know StratCan posts them. What's the Cannabis Marketplace?
Yeah.
Share the love. We just any of these companies that exist that are trying to make this industry better, we want to support them. So
yeah, ton of great ways to wrap up the summer before it gets cold.
Yeah, well, we just heard from Mike. Mike said, end of August or end of October. Okay, end of October. Does that mean it's going to be a warm Halloween?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just looking at my email inbox. The invite is already there.
October 2nd. It's right here, October 2nd. But anyways, this has been a really fun episode. We hope you enjoy it. We'll see you next week.